Okay, and welcome to this one-shot of Dresden Files Accelerated, set in the Wild West in Tombstone. Now, for any of you watching who aren't aware, Tombstone is a town founded in 1979 by the prospector Ed Schufer in Arizona.
This video isn't a
one of the
complaint
last
about
of the
people
big
asking
boom
questions
towns
in
and
general.
had a massive
Asking questions is
period of
good
growth
and
in
healthy.
the
It's a great way to
mid-1800s,
expand your
with
knowledge
local
and get
mines
involved in
producing
the
about
community.
40 to
Personally, I'm
85
always happy to
million
answer questions
dollars
and try
in
to help
silver
people.
The town
However,
was
if
built
someone
on
is going
a
to ask
large
you a
mesa
question
or
about,
rocky
say,
outcropping above
D&D,
the
to give a stereotypical
aptly named
example,
Good Enough
you'd expect them to
mine.
have at least
It was a fairly
vaguely
large town. I mean,
read
it had
something
like
about
4
D&D.
churches, even an ice house, schools, a couple of banks, 3 newspapers, like hundreds of saloons. But all that was a long time ago. In the mid-1880s, the silver mines broke through into the local water table. And at first they were able to keep the water at bay by building huge pumps, etc. But these pumps were destroyed by a large fire in 1886. And because while the silver mines were almost played out, it wasn't really profitable to rebuild these expensive pumps, the city started to become more derelict and become something of a ghost town. Now, our game is going to be set sort of later on, 1st of December 1886, so it's after the fire. The decision has been made not to rebuild the pumps, and as soon as the silver started drying up, people started leaving it in droves, as was the case with a lot of these sort of boom and bust towns at the time. Because of the period we're set in, the White Council of Wizards only has a tenuous grip in America at this point in time. So much as it's a lawless frontier for mortals, it's also pretty much the same for the supernatural world. A lot of players trying to make a play for power in the current sort of relatively free and easygoing situation that's occurring. I put up a small sort of handout for my players before the game actually started. It's a local newspaper called the Tombstone Echo, running with the main story of another murder in Tombstone. The newspaper read that another in a series of strange murders has occurred in the almost abandoned town of Tombstone, the 7th in a string of unusual murders, each committed by a different person. Although Sheriff Everett Hamilton was unavailable for comment, it is believed the apprehended perpetrator of the crime claimed to remember nothing of the incident. The murderer, a young woman by the name of Betty Knowles, murdered Melvin Graham whilst engaged in a business transaction with the young gentleman. Currently held in the local jail awaiting the arrival of a posse of marshals, it is believed that she will be transported for trial. Now, a small distance outside of Tombstone, a man by the name of McFay came across, under, let's say, slightly dubious circumstances, a small homestead where everyone within inside had been murdered by a foul creature, an outsider as he refers to it, but perhaps not an outsider as we know it, a force of corruption. As he decided to chase this creature, he was joined by a man by the name of Vincent Hart, who was himself pursuing the creature, intent on bringing it to justice and in all likelihood killing it. With Vincent Hart was a man by the name of Joshua Faraday, just a normal man, a bit of a gambler, a bit of a card shark, a bit of a player you might call him. However, he is very clued in on the supernatural world, and in return for a certain favour that Hart was going to help him with, a situation he wanted dealing with, he'd agreed to accompany him and give him some useful intel on this creature that he was pursuing. As the three of them headed into Tombstone, just before they arrived in the town, they were met by a Native American Indian known as Bodaway, who had been in hiding for some time, hiding from the black forces that menaced the town of Tombstone. And he was looking for allies against this force of darkness, the forces of the Black Court, and agreed to help the trio in return for their help with dealing with his problem. We pick up the start of the session with the 4 of these people gathered in the Dead Dog Saloon. It's pretty run down, as the name would suggest. It's obviously seen better days. The whole place looks like a strong wind would blow it over. There's a couple of girls working there. A man stood behind the bar. There's a few dusty bottles of various liquor, none of it of particularly good pedigree. The whole town is going to rack and ruin now that the silver has dried up. We join these four people, McFay, Hart, Faraday and Bodaway, as they're sat around one of the chipped and stained varnished tables in the Dead Dog Saloon, about to discuss their next course of action, as it were. Just off to the side of them is another smaller round table where a slightly disgruntled looking man sits staring down into his glass of liquor, listening slightly to the conversation they're having. But before we jump on to that conversation, I'm going to ask each of our players to introduce themselves. Feel free to plug any YouTube channels if you've got them, and say a little bit about their characters. So first of all, we are going to start with Jason.
All right, my name is Jason, and in terms of plugging channels, I have Pair of Geeks with my fiance, so feel free to subscribe to that. We do lots on miniatures, how-tos, how to win things, and that kind of thing, all game-worthy. But tonight I'm playing the character Bodaway, who is from the Chiricahua tribe, which is very, very close to where Tombstone is being set. And he has seen some rather terrifying things the Black Court can do. And since then, he has become dedicated to protecting his people from them, basically turning them to be like them.
Okay, thank you very much. And next we're going to go to Dave Hodgkinson, who is playing Vincent Hart.
Hello, I'll be playing Vincent Hart this evening. He's a bounty hunter, he's also a monster hunter, so he's operating just inside the law.
Okay, thank you very much. And we now move on to Afro Dave, who is playing the noted card shark, Joshua Faraday.
Hello, yeah, I'm Afro Dave. I've got my Facebook, YouTube pages behind the Afro. And I'm also running a community now called Positive People. So if you want to get into positivity and stuff like that, join Positive People on Facebook. And yeah, I'm playing Joshua Faraday. He's a gambler, card shark. He's got into some trouble in his youth. I kind of got him in trouble with some demons. I know he's got an issue with a demon that's possessed him, and he's trying to sort that out.
Okay, thank you very much. And if this was a movie, this would be where the camera would pan across from the three people we've just mentioned to the lone figure sat on the table nearby. And I'm going to ask John Drury to describe his character.
I am playing Lunan Michael O'Connor. He is an embittered ex-warden conscript. He had fought with the council during some troubles that were surrounding the Civil War, which passed not too long ago from where we are in the setting. He is now a prospector, which seems a bit incongruous given the situation in the town, but he's been luckier than most, and he has an uncanny way of finding the silver that does remain in the hills. And of course, he is sitting, drinking his drink, just listening to the conversation that's happening next door.
And last but by no means least, we go to John Lamb.
Sorry. Am I there?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
move on.
Playing Mr. McFay, who is a changeling who's challenged by his corruptive heritage, trying to find his way through the world.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as I've said, we start the game in the Dead Dog Saloon, as I've described. The four of you, McFay, Hart, Faraday and Bodaway, you're all sat around this chipped, badly varnished table, getting ready to discuss your next move. Obviously, Bodaway, you've not really had much time to tell them about sort of the influence of the Black Court, and feel free to freestyle that as much as you want. The other three, you've really been pursuing this outsider, and again, feel free to throw in details and freestyle the details of that. So I'm going to turn over to the four of you to carry on your discussion. Obviously, the figure who is listening can interject when he wishes. So over to you guys.
Okay, I'll go. Bodaway, he's got this red bandana which he removes after several days of it being tightly wound around his head, and he dusts off his brow. He decided to order some kind of cheap liquor with what money he has remaining, but he hasn't eaten in quite some time. He's tentative. He sees all three of you as almost veterans of the craft, whereas he's only seen such things. He stares at you for a little while, just observing you before opening up and saying, "This thing you're pursuing, what is it exactly?"
McFay will note that I haven't seen it. I've only seen what it's done, and it drained the life out of some settlers and left them as empty husks. But I know that it's not large and has many legs and it's fast. But other than that, I haven't seen it yet.
My, there are so many more things that I cannot see. I myself have seen monsters in men that turn others to be like them. They feed off them.
Okay, now as this conversation is going on, I'm going to ask Lunan Michael O'Connor. You're a man of the world. You've been in the service of the White Council before. You've heard this Indian man saying he's seen things feeding off other people and making them like them. Does that draw any sort of reaction from you? What are you thinking at this point in time?
Lunan is sitting there trying to enjoy his quiet drink when he sees these four rough and tumbled looking travelers come in through the door and begin chatting over their drink. And at first he's sort of just bewildered that they just casually have these conversations out in the open for any old mortal to hear. But at the mention of life draining and, feeding on men and everything like that, he sort of puts his drink down and turns around looking at Bodaway. He's like, "You mean vampires? Yes?"
If that's what you call them.
Well, we call them a lot of different things, actually. But what do they look like?
Like men. One in particular, he was a soldier, a general of a huge army. And one of our chiefs of the Chiricahua went to surrender. But he thought surrender as in surrender to him and the lands. But I saw this man feed on the chief as if he was a piece of meat.
Did he...
Sounds like the bloodsuckers to me.
Did he change when he fed on your chief?
He fell weakly to the ground. I did not see any change as I was already running, but I heard things. I heard screams coming from the chief, as if he was in pain.
As you're having this conversation, a young woman walks down the sort of rickety stairs, then head up to the rooms upstairs in the Dead Dog Tavern. She's wearing a sort of almost like a lacy red dress, and she has these like piercing blue eyes. She walks across the room, picks up a small shot glass, and drains it in one. Then she's just about to go back up the stairs when her eyes seem to linger a little bit on Joshua Faraday. And Joshua, you see her looking at you with these piercing blue eyes. She walks over to you, sort of drapes a hand casually over your shoulder, and then she says, "Well, what's a handsome fella like you doing in a two-horse town like this?"
Well, we've all got business here. I'm just waiting for my friends here to decide what to do.
She leans down close to your ear, and you can feel her breath on your ear, as in a husky voice that I unfortunately can't do. She leans closer, and almost whispers to you, well, I'm sure your friends could do without you for a few minutes. What say me and you go upstairs and conduct some business of our own?
Well, they're not exactly making much decision right now. I've had these conversations before. You just take a bit of time.
Indeed, she looks at you and you can almost get lost in those big blue eyes that she has, as she sort of lightly takes your hand, and if you're willing, and I'll let you know at this point, this is a compel, we'll start leading you towards the stairs. Now, obviously, I'm going to go into a bit more of the rules style thing here, because I'm offering this as a compel to you. If you accept the compel, you go upstairs with this woman, you will get a fate point. If you don't want to do this, you can pay me a fate point, which I'm relying on you all to track your own fate points. You can avoid it. It's up to you.
I'll turn to Vincent, can give him a cheeky nod and go, I'll let you guys make the decisions. Come to me when you need some information on what you're doing. And I'll sort it off with this lovely filly.
Okay, so the woman takes you by the hand and she gently leads you towards the staircase, and you all see Joshua Faraday and this woman disappear up the wooden stairs.
As she's leading me off, I'll kind of stop for a second, grab my drinks on the side, throw it back, and then head off with her.
Okay, so Faraday disappears upstairs, leaving the four of you guys alone around the table.
As Faraday leaves with the prostitute, Mulan is going to get up from his table and take his seat at the table with the other three at this point, and continue his thought with Baudouin. They're probably Black Court vampires, kind of corpse-looking, very pale. Looks like they've been rotting in the sun.
Now that this stranger mentions it, Baudouin, you do remember that as you saw this sort of, from the account you've heard of this general, this vampire, as this stranger's calling it, that there were remarks that he appeared as one who'd been sort of like dead for a number of days.
He did have a much paler face than normal when he started feeding. And I've seen others appearing like him when they came to our camps.
Yes, a scourge.
How are they able to walk if they are dead?
The vampires have been risen by another vampire of their kind. They're commonly referred to as Black Court. They're typical corpse-like creatures, something you might have read out of a dime store novel.
And indeed,
but
I look extremely confused at that remark.
Just to let anyone know who is maybe not as familiar with Dresden Files, if you think of a Black Court vampire, just think of any of the like powers or weaknesses that are inherent in like the vampires from Bram Stoker's Dracula, and you won't go far wrong.
At Baudouin's confusion, Lenon sort of elaborates. They don't like the sun, running water, symbols of redemption like crosses. They can get killed by a stake to the heart, unnaturally fast, unnaturally strong. And some of them have other abilities. At that, he just takes a drink from his glass, not wanting to elaborate.
At this point in time, as you're continuing your discussion, you hear several loud banging sounds from upstairs, and then you hear Faraday's voice shouting, and to put it delicately, it doesn't sound like he's shouting for help.
Your friend seems to be enjoying his company.
Oh,
It's not a very good time. We have things to discuss.
Yes, and what was this other creature? He turns to McPhee at this point. Multiple legs, you said, draining the life. And at this point, does he? At this point, I'm kind of looking at McPhee, sort of suspiciously. Kind of getting a sense of that he's not normal. Perhaps I might not know what he is, but He has an aura about him, let's just say.
As you focus on McVeigh, he focuses on you, has a wry little smile, and then a fly gets in your eye. And as you wipe the fly away, it goes in your nose. And as you wipe it, in your nose, it goes in your mouth. And then you're completely distracted. You're not looking at him anymore.
It's funny that should happen, because obviously as a practitioner, you would know that you could have initiated a soul gaze with this person, Lunan, if you'd met their gaze. But like just as like you felt the stirrings of that start as you were sort of looking at each other, that's when the fly sort of started getting in your face, almost as though it was like deliberately trying to prevent that from occurring.
And to be frank, Lunan's not interested in getting into any soul gazes at this juncture. He's done that once too many times.
As for the creature, I came across a cabin, and I just wanted to offer my assistance if they needed any, just in case, the Christian thing to do. And as I approached, I found the family horribly slain. Their life had been drained away, and they were all leathery as if they'd been in the sun for years, almost mummified. But clearly, by the condition of the food, that the food had been prepared that morning. So instantly I thought some sort of black-hearted outsider. And then I found the tracks. And the tracks were many, but they were too orderly. So it was as if maybe 7 or 9 feet were stepping in some strange rotation rather than several individuals. So I tracked it here, and I'm still looking for it to this day.
At this point in time, the camera pans up, moving through the floor of the saloon into the upstairs room where Mr. Faraday is getting busy with Ruby Lang, one of the women who works at the saloon. So, Mr. Faraday, you're sat astride young Miss Lang, doing what you do best in this sort of situation, really.
The cowboy shuffle. Yeah.
Indeed. Having a thoroughly enjoyable time, when suddenly the woman who you're engaged with, her eyes turn entirely white. The temperature appears to drop several degrees in the room, to the point where like a wisp of mist comes out as you breathe out. And this woman with almost supernatural strength just reaches up and like grabs hold of you round the throat, squeezing quite painfully to the point where it's getting difficult for you to breathe. And she just rasps out in a loud voice, 8! And like grabs hold of your neck and starts squeezing the life out of you.
Okay.
What do you do?
At that point, as being attacked by someone, I will basically try and basically, with the possession inside of it, I'm going to basically the team inside basically obviously want to keep this body alive. I'm going to basically get the kind of like demon strength and kind of like throw her against the side cabinet, trying to get her off my neck.
Okay, so you're going to try and throw her off, so that will be an overcome roll using your force approach. So make your dice roll and add your force approach to it. I will do likewise for her. Whoever gets the highest wins. Simple.
Okay, I got a 2 on my roll, but I got a force of 0, so that's 2.
Okay, you try and struggle free. However, her grip around your throat is very tight indeed. You're not able to struggle free. Your vision is starting to go blurry and dark around the edges as air is no longer reaching your brain. In your mental landscape, this dark room, which is like almost like a spotlight shining down on a round green bay card table, you are sat across with your demon playing a hand of cards. This obviously happening entirely in your mental landscape. The demon appearing as a person dressed in sharp clothes. He has 2 small horns.
It's a she, says succubus.
A she, that's absolutely fine. Still wearing a suit, still got 2 small horns. Turns over a card, and you see that this is the Ace of Spades with a very fancy Grim Reaper emblazoned on it. And she says in a soft voice, "Well, I hadn't expected that I would be collecting your soul quite so soon, but one never can tell with the look of the cards." And she throws the cards down almost carelessly. And outside your mental landscape, you can almost hear yourself like trying to gasp for breath as you're like,
Yep.
okay, you know you've basically got a few moments before you lose consciousness. And once you lose consciousness, that's it. She's just going to squeeze the life out of you. What do you do? You've tried to break free. That's a no-go.
Yeah. Well, at this point, because obviously it's got like a lot more strength than me, and I'm basically kind of derobed right now, so any of my items or anything I've got, I can't use against her. I'm going to throw this hand and let the demon take over to save me from this creature.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So the demon looks at how do you request this of the demon in your mental landscape? You're sat around the card table, this smiling young woman basically saying, "Oh, looks like I've got your soul. Game over." How do you request? What are you offering? How do you request help? Because as far as she's concerned, all she's got to do is sit pretty and wait for a few minutes, and your soul's on the one-way trip to her.
Well, basically, the way I see it is, my soul right now is all well and good, but it could be a lot more fat, a lot more juicy for her later. So if she wants to get the jackpot and take all the winnings, she wants to keep this game going.
She, as you say this, she holds up the ace of spades and then says, "Shall we consider that you will owe me for this?"
Of course, a bargain's a bargain.
She smiles. At this point, mark off one of the indebted boxes on your character sheet, and as you say, of course, a bargain's a bargain. There is a brief flare of flame and the card is reduced to nothing in her hands. The rest of you downstairs, there is suddenly a tremendously loud crash from upstairs, and literally part of the roof falls in. Like this like bed drops down directly onto the table where you guys have been sat. You all have a chance to get out of the way because you've heard the cracking of the beams above. That's not a problem. As the bed falls down, you can see this naked young woman with these what were piercing blue eyes, but now they're entirely white. She has her hands locked around the neck of Mr. Faraday. There is a distinct smell of brimstone in the air as Faraday, just like with one hand and like a bizarre sort of like satisfied smile on his face, just pulls her hands from around his neck and just one-handed throws her the length of the room. The woman smashes into the far end of the room, and then Faraday, you're back in your own body. It was only a brief favour. You take in a gasp of breath. You're like naked, sat on this bed that's now a floor below. All of these people around you. The landlord's like looking in shock as you've just plummeted through the roof, and you're stood there naked as the day you were born. You can see the woman's at the far end of the room. You've obviously thrown her off. Over to you guys. What are you doing?
I'm going to go and shoot it.
I have a question as well before I do anything.
Go ahead.
I just need to know. And I'll give you a roll for this if I need to. I want to identify, because obviously I see this woman, I see what she looks like, and I have an idea what that might be, given my background and experience. But I'd like to know if I can identify her readily, or if I need to give you a roll, or if she's unidentifiable.
Looking at her eyes and the expression on her eyes as she was, the brief moment you saw her before she was flung the length of the room, you suspect she's possessed by something, although you can't identify what without sort of further investigation.
That's fine. Yeah, that's just going to guide what I do then. That's fine. Yeah,
okay,
so go first then.
So, Hart, you said you were going to shoot the woman.
Yep.
Okay, so make me an overcome roll. It'd probably be a force roll, cause you just like, or you could use haste if you go for the quick draw.
I use force.
Okay, no problems.
I'm going to intercede and block his shot at the woman.
Okay, in which case I'll say you need to make me a haste roll to see if you can like intercede, and if your haste roll beats his attack roll, you've managed to stop him. Otherwise, he's got the shot off first.
Yeah, that's fine. I actually would like instead to jump in front of him and raise a shield and use my force to do so.
Okay, that's fine. So make that roll again. If it beats his roll,
yeah,
you've done it. So tell me what rolls you get, guys.
I have a fair. which no, that's a fair roll. What's my haste? Is a 4, I believe, total.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. It's 4, and it's so 5 total.
Okay, so what's your roll, Mr. Hart?
6.
Okay, so unfortunately you're not quite fast enough to jump in front and get your shield up. This guy with his 6 shooters, obviously extremely quick. He's got hair trigger reflexes. Literally as soon as the woman's thrown, he's already got his gun in his hand and he's aiming at where she's going to hit the wall, as though he's like.
Can I use a fate point, please?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm going to use my fate point to invoke my embittered ex-warden conscript to bring that to a 7.
Okay, so you pull your gun out, Mr. Hart. You take a shot. It's dead on target. You've got a bang to rights when this stranger who just joined you sort of leaps in the way. And I'll turn it over to you, John, to describe how your shield manifests.
Yeah, I recognize the signs of possession. I realize that this person's about to shoot essentially what is an innocent person. So I jump in front and barely get my hand up, whisper something, and an aura of swirling wind surrounds me, and the shot goes awry.
Okay, so that is what happens. Okay, now, Bodaway, as you're sort of like looking at this going on, you're stood just a little behind where Mr. Faraday's like Starkers has like fallen through the ceiling. You can see him sort of stood there, buck naked. And you can also see that on his back, perhaps sort of scored by the woman's fingernails whilst he was busy with her. You can see that she appears to have sort of like scratched a number 8 in his back with like her nails.
Okay.
He doesn't even appear to have noticed it. Obviously, he was busy at the time, but.
Okay. I'll probably take that in properly a bit later after the scene, because at the minute, the thing that's terrifying Budaway the most is that this McFay person who's sort of come in to the group a bit unannounced, he's now suddenly performing this magic.
I should point out it's Lunan Michael O'Connor who's performed the magic.
Oh, beg pardon. O'Connor.
O'Connor, yeah.
O'Connor. So Budaway's actually going to get out his rifle and point it straight at you, O'Connor, and say, "Why did you stop him shoot? What are you?" You're with her, aren't you?
I'll explain what I am later, but I can't let you kill this person. She's possessed.
You can see like sort of climbing out of the rubble of the wall. The woman was thrown with such force by Faraday that she's actually sort of like smashed into the wall and has like dented the wall slightly. She's pulling herself to her feet. You can see from the way she's standing that several of her bones were broken by the force of the throw from Faraday, but that doesn't appear to bother her at all. As she stands up, the temperature in the room appears to drop by several degrees. You can also see your breath hissing out as clouds. Her eyes are entirely white. She has almost no expression on her face whatsoever.
Shoot it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna sort of pull the trigger back.
Okay, so before you guys shoot, I'm going to jump over to Mr. McFay. McFay, what are you doing at this point in time?
The whole time, McFay's been sitting there in his chair as if it was a Sunday afternoon, watching the kids play at a park, at a church event, just smiling through the whole thing, completely unaffected by all the action.
Okay, that's
the weirdest thing in this situation right now. That's the weirdest.
Okay, so in the meantime, as well, Faraday, you're sort of stood there like Starkers. You can see that like, your like gear is still like hung on the corner of the bedstead where you hung it while you were getting busy, but you're just stood there like buck naked as all this like chaos is breaking out around you. You're fully back in control of yourself now. What are you doing?
Basically, I've front coming back. I'm gonna basically kind of like jump back, grab my gun out of its holster, and I would like to kind of like shoot up at a chandelier and try and knock her out.
That's fine. You don't have to make a roll for that. Now, so this is like a really like derelict ass like saloon. So I'm gonna say if you want a chandelier to be there, you're gonna have to spend a fate point for that because there wouldn't naturally be a chandelier.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so cross off one of your fate points. Okay, so if you want to knock the chandelier down, normally I wouldn't ask you for a roll for that. Knocking it down is not a problem. However, if you want to knock her out, I'm going to have to ask you to make a roll for that.
Yeah, that's fine. And to make it kind of more make sense, it's a sign saying like patrons up this way or something like that near the stairs.
Okay, Nice. So, which of your approaches are you suggesting for this roll? I mean, are you going for like haste, like the quick draw? Are you going for force, which would be the normal for an attack? How are you seeing this play out?
Could I go for guile because it's a bit of a sneaky move to try and knock her out?
Yeah, in this situation, I'll allow it. So make your roll, add your guile approach, tell me what you get.
Okay, I got a +1 on my roll, so I got 4 rolls together.
Okay, that's fine. Just let me make a quick roll for her. Okay, right, so you have successfully knocked this woman out with the chandelier. So describe how that goes down. What happens?
So yeah, basically I kind of like I jump backwards towards the back of the bed, pulling out my gun, kind of aiming it towards her, but then lifting it up, firing twice at the sign above the stairs. There's like kind of large sign that says "Patrons this way," and as she kind of like comes towards us, it smashes her on the back of the head, forcing her head into a chair and knocking her to the floor.
Okay, and indeed that's what happens. There is a loud crash as the chandelier comes down. It falls just behind where Lunan Michael O'Connor has his shield erected, hits the woman, probably hasn't killed her, but it has rendered her unconscious. She slumps to the floor amidst the broken crystal and wiring of the now shattered chandelier.
And I'll finish with standing there butt naked with the smoke coming out of my gun going, I ain't paying for that service.
Nice. Wow. Okay, yeah. We're effectively obviously not in combat rounds anymore, so you guys feel free, go for it.
Yeah.
I've still got my gun trailed on O'Connor, just because I'm expecting him to do something else.
I'll turn around to the scene, seeing Borderway pointing a gun at O'Connor. I've never met this guy before, because obviously he wasn't in our table. And my gun will be pointing towards him.
Okay, so O'Connor, you've heard the crash of the chandelier. You've seen that the woman is knocked out. She's not dead. You can still see her chest moving a little bit, although she does have several injuries, although they're more from the throw into the wall and the fall through the ceiling than the actual chandelier. She's alive, but she's unconscious, and you've got one guy who's sat there like it's a Sunday afternoon, like just like sat there like maybe he's raised an eyebrow, if that. The others all seem to be like pointing their guns at you.
I release my shield now that the danger is past, and I say that.
Well, the danger's not past. You got guns on you.
I don't feel that endangered by your guns. Let's just say. I look at each of you, and I say, we can sort out our business later if you'd like, but right now, we need to get that woman into a room. We need to see if whatever is possessing her is still within her. And if it is, we need to try to extricate it from her, and quickly.
I'll look towards Vincent, keeping my gun on O'Connor, and say, Vincent, do you want to check that out? That seems to be one of your type of things you go for.
Yeah, I'll holster my gun.
Looking towards the woman on the phone conscious.
As you're holstering your gun, Vincent, the fat sort of balding guy who was stood behind the bar as the bartender is like, "How's bells? What have you done to my Ruby?" And he like looks like he's like completely at a loss. He's like he doesn't know what to do. He's like holding his head and he's like looking from Ruby on the floor to like the hole in the ceiling. All you guys with your guns out. He's like,
"Calm down, get a drink. It'll be all right after a shot."
To be fair, you telling him to calm down is not working. he immediately runs round like as though he's going towards like the woman who's like lying there. He's like,
okay.
Ruby, you're all right, my girl, Ruby.
If he does that, I turn my gun towards him.
He's like, whoa!
She is a monster. Do you want to be a monster?
Sorry. He's like, what the bloody hell are you on about? Don't make me go and get the sheriff. Look, she's a good girl. She's been working here for years. You ain't done no harm to anyone. Then you strangers pole in and like, look at the damage. Who's going to pay for all this bloody thing?
At that, Lunan approaches the table and goes into a pouch, begins to count out pieces of silver onto the table, and then passes them over to the barkeep and like, and if you don't mind, we're going to take one of the rooms upstairs. Ruby will be fine. You have my word.
He looks at you and he says, "Well, if it were anyone else asking Mr. O'Connor, well, I'd still have to go and get the sheriff." He goes, "But I know you've been good to this town, and I know you're a good local fella. So And he sort of disappears the silver while he's saying this into his pocket, and he's like, "Yeah, but I don't want no more trouble."
Don't worry.
It's like,
There'll be no more trouble.
This is a good friendly establishment. We can't have all murder and all sorts of things going on here.
Of course not. I understand entirely. Let us see to your girl, and then we'll be on our way.
Should I still call the sheriff, Mr. O'Connor?
No,
No.
Sheriff.
Please don't.
Okay. Just see to Ruby. Like I say, she's a good girl. I mean, I don't want no harm to come to. I mean, what happened to her folks and all that. I mean, well, she's practically family. The only family I've got.
I understand.
I'm not paying her anything.
What happened to her
shoots you like,
folks?
he shoots you like an evil look. Like if looks could kill, you would like burn to ash where you stand. As he's
What,
like,
me?
yeah, because he's like, oh, my sort of adopted daughter. Oh my God, what's happened to her? And you're like, not paying her.
I will not take that in any ways. I don't understand what he means for that. What?
But he relents, and thanks to the intercession of Mr. O'Connor, who he knows, he allows you to do what you're doing, probably like counting the silver surreptitiously while he's doing that. So again, over to you guys. The barkeep steps back and he lets you get on with your business.
I'm going to ask the barkeeper what happened to her folks.
He's like, what folks? I don't know what you mean, stranger.
You just said something happened to her folk. What happened?
Oh, her folks. He sort of jerks a thumb in Ruby's direction. He says, well, Pox got them, didn't it? Yeah, we had a bad case of it in town. Oh, let's see, must be 20 years ago now. Well, since she ain't got no folks, I took her in when she was just a nipper.
How old?
Well, she'd have been about 3-4 at the time.
I'm going to go and have a look at this Ruby. Now it's calming down, apparently.
Yeah, she's sparked out. She's unconscious. As you go over to her and you look down, you see that her eyes are now look normal. Her eyes are still open, obviously, and there's these piercing blue eyes staring sightlessly up towards the hole in the ceiling.
Okay,
As you're walking over, like, your back feels a bit fucking sore.
Yeah? Oh, well, I'll touch it a bit, and if there's like a bit of blood in it, I'll be like...
Yeah, as you touch your back, you bring your hand round and there's blood on your hand.
Well,
You should see that.
yeah, basically, she's back to normal, in a sense, like she's not trying to murder people and stuff like that. I'll be like, Vincent, I'm going to put her in a bed upstairs unless you don't want to do anything else.
Tie her
No, that'd
down.
be great, actually.
Okay, so Vincent says tie her down, and Mr. O'Connor's like, yeah, getting her in a bed's a good idea.
Alright, I'll pick her up and start walking her upstairs. Still butt naked, my clothes are upstairs. I'll go and get them.
I'm going to follow behind.
That's absolutely fine. You take her upstairs to one of the other rooms. They're all pretty much the same. They all have like a sort of one-person bed in them, a dresser, nothing entirely untoward. You open one of the other rooms, we'll put her down on the bed, Mr. Faraday. She's still unconscious.
Who's following me up? Who's following me up the stairs?
I will.
O'Connor is right behind you.
Alright, cool. I'll drop her down on the bed and I'll turn to you, O'Connor, and go, if anyone's tying it up, you can do it. I'm not tying up.
As you turn, you see me rolling up my sleeves on my shirt, cracking my knuckles, and then going towards her and kneeling next to her on the bed. And what? I just turn to you all and it's like, whatever you do, don't shoot right away. Yes, just in case. And at that, I'm going to put my hand on her head. Now, what I want to do is I want to use my magic to get a sense of her level of injury, of course, as well, but also to sense for anything that might be still inside her, any spirits or the residue of such creatures. Essentially, what I want to do is two things, really. I want to create advantage to gain that information, and then I'll use my magic as an overcome action as well to start her recovery on her because she's wounded, obviously. I can't heal her completely, but I can at least get her mending up a bit. So
okay, so make your create advantage roll.
No problem, will do. Let's see, it's going to be focus with scale and where's my roller? One moment, got to find this roller.
That's fine, no problems.
A total of 6.
Okay, that's enough to give you an advantage, and I'm going to call the advantage something like ghostly residue. You could sense that it was a ghost that had possessed her.
So it's a ghost. Gotcha. Do I? And I can use that. I can use the. Is it 1 free invoke or 2 free invokes on that?
It's 1 free invoke.
That's fine. And I'm assuming since I have that advantage, I can use it again if I need to with a fate point or use my magic to sort of track it, that sort of thing. Okay, very good.
Okay, so as you're sort of like putting your hand on it, you're whispering an evocation, and you're creating this advantage. For a few moments, you see what appears to be, and you see what appears to be this hazy, translucent image of a man wearing a soldier's uniform stood next to it. It's not the ghost as such. It's the more like the residue that's been left behind. You're seeing like an after image.
Mm-hmm. Right. So after a few minutes of whispering, in the room, Broadway and Joshua might feel their skin crawl. Goosebumps might kind of come up as they kind of feel a surge, almost like a lightning storm, or rubbing their feet against the upholstery the wrong way. And when I withdraw my hand, they can see that Ruby is now sleeping. Her breathing seems to be even, and although she seems to be banged up still, she seems to be a little less worse for wear. I sort of swoon back on my haunches, put my hand to my head, kind of rub it. Oh.
Can I, John? I know you said you got like the knowledge ticking boxes to know things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can I watch him and work out something about what magic he's using or something?
Okay. Make me.
Because I'm using magic, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Make me an overcome roll using your focus. If you tick one or more of your knowledge boxes, you can add a +2 to that roll for each box you tick.
Okay, I'll tick one box. I got a -1 on my roll. What aspect approach is it?
It's focus.
Okay, I've got 2 in that, so that's 1, and I'll tick a box. That's 3.
Yep. So roll your dice and add it on.
Oh, that's all together. I got -1 on that.
All together. You think that he's got some sort of ability in the magical arts because you only got a 3 though. You wouldn't be able to precisely nail down exactly what level of practitioner he is. You know that he's obviously comfortable with the abilities he's just used, and he obviously has some power, but that's not the extent of your knowledge at the moment.
But so is a fucking wizard.
If that's how your character sees it, that's how he sees it. But you don't know how powerful a wizard he is. But you know he's clearly some sort of magical practitioner.
Some fucking wizard. I'm gonna basically at that point when he's finished doing it, I'm gonna kind of realize after I'm very curious that I'm also curious of being butt naked. So I'm gonna turn and walk out to go and get my clothes in the next room, which I'm guessing Bodie there can see the 8 on my or whatever's on my back.
Okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to suggest, if you wish, because I believe you took the stunt. Faraday, where you could use your knowledge to establish a relationship with an NPC. Was that correct?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to say is, if you wish, if you tick a knowledge box, I will say that you have possibly heard of this person, this O'Connor. But if you tick that knowledge box, he may have also heard of you.
No, actually, no. I don't really want to be fair.
That's absolutely fine. So you regard what he's doing, then you turn around and walk into the other room to go and get your clothes.
Yeah.
By the way, how do you respond to what you've just seen?
Yeah, so I'm a little confused with what's going on, but at the same time I feel much calmer that now the woman is sleeping. What concerns me more is Faraday and how he's behaving. And I put a hand on his shoulder and say, Mr. Faraday, you need to get this wound seen to.
Okay, so you're putting a hand on Faraday before he goes to get his clothes and walk out of the room, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're just about to head out the room, Faraday, when, by the way, puts his hand on your shoulder and says, you need to sort this woman out.
Yeah. I'll kind of flick Bodie's hand off me kind of thing, as in don't touch me. But then when he says that, I'll be like, oh. And I was like, what the hell is that?
It is a number. That's certainly what it looks like.
At this point, Mr. Faraday, I'm going to give you an option to pay off your indebted point if you so wish.
Okay.
And in your mental landscapes around this card table with your demon, she walks around the table, puts her arms around your neck, and sort of leaning close to you says, "Let me talk to him for a little while." No.
All right, you can have it. You can have this one.
So clear off your indebted box. So as you're saying that, Faraday, he's like pushed your hand off his shoulder, by the way. He suddenly stops, turns around, and he has this wry smile on his face. There's a slight smell of brimstone in the room. And the expression isn't one you've seen on Faraday's face before while you've been travelling with him. But it does remind you of the expression that was on his face when he threw the woman into the wall. Turns round to you and says, "And do you really think that stopping this one black court vampire is going to somehow save your people?"
I'm reaching for my gun. No. But it's a start.
There's a quiet, almost feminine chuckle comes from Faraday. And the voice, Faraday looks at you, and as you look into his eyes, you feel uneasy, and like a shiver runs down your spine. And again, this quite calm voice says, "Trust me, I've seen what's going to happen in the future for your people, and you're not going to enjoy it."
I really sort of quickly get out my rifle again and just hold it at him.
Okay, and at which point,
I guess I come back in.
Yeah, Faraday's face just like changes, like someone's flicked a switch, and Faraday, you find yourself sort of in the process of like leaning forward to like literally like put your forehead against the rifle that Bodaway's holding up, and that's when you flick back into yourself.
Yeah, I'll kind of like pull myself back away from the rifle and go, that wasn't me. Whatever they said, just ignore it.
I sort of point my gun up and down and say, "What do you mean? You just spoke. You said that my people will not live."
That was the passenger, and the passenger lies. Oh, doesn't always tell the full truth.
At the mention of this passenger, and after obviously witnessing what just transpired, and also seeing out of the corner of his eye that McFay's sort of standing in the doorway, I'm going to use my sight to examine both Faraday and McFay, because I have my suspicions about both of them, so I want to kind of confirm them.
Okay, now, if I remember correctly, McFay was still downstairs. Is that correct?
If you look in the chat, he's upstairs with us now.
Right. Okay.
I didn't want to interrupt. He went to the bar, poured a drink, walked upstairs calmly, and was standing at the door for this most recent exchange.
Cool.
Okay, that is absolutely fine. So I'm going to have to rely on you a little bit to explain how the site works.
Yeah, so basically, obviously, I see metaphorical expressions of the true nature of everything in the room. It ignores any disguises, glamours. It doesn't grant any knowledge per se. I have to interpret it myself, which is a focus roll against fair opposition, presuming nobody's opposing me, or I'm not in the middle of like a supernatural struggle or something like that.
Okay,
so
we'll make your focus roll.
Yeah. One more. Let's see. 2, 4. Yeah, right. So it's a 4 total.
Okay. So McFay, if someone was looking...
Hold on. He noted the other guy first.
Yeah. I'm just making him do one roll.
Okay.
So what I'm asking about, if someone was like looking at your character and they saw like an iconic representation summing up your character, what would they see?
How he physically walks around, like his outfit and so forth, or
no,
his
as
core.
in they're seeing like the true core of your being. What would it look like?
It would look exactly the same as he is, but slightly out of focus, as if you were looking through a filter, where it was like your glasses were covered in dirt, and you couldn't quite make out the details.
Okay, so that's what you see when you look at McFay. He looks like a little bit smudged and out of focus, and you can hear this sort of like faint, like buzzing sound. As you look at...
And a feeling of cold, I'd presume.
Oh, indeed. And as you look at Mr. Faraday, suddenly within your mental landscape, your in this darkened room, there is a small round green bay card table in this spotlight. Seated at the table is Mr. Faraday, and sat opposite him is this incredibly beautiful woman wearing a suit with 2 horns in her forehead. Obviously, you're seeing this as well, Faraday. It's in your mental landscape. Suddenly, you see the eyebrows of your passenger raise in surprise. She pushes out a third chair, which you hadn't noticed until this point, Faraday. And she looks directly at you, Mr. O'Connor, and says, "Deal you in." You can see there's a pack of cards on the table in front of her.
I'm here. I'm me doing my thing, aren't I? Yeah. I'm going to look up him and go, "You probably don't want to join this game, mate."
You've never seen anyone else besides you and the passenger in your mental landscape, but suddenly, like,
No.
Michael O'Connor is there. Obviously, you can interact with this Mr. O'Connor. She says, "Deal you in," and pushes out a chair, and he's like, "You don't want to get in on this game, mate."
Now, because of the situation, is McFly included in this? Because the soul gaze draws information from both.
No, this is my third eye, so I'm just seeing everything as it is.
Yeah,
So
I'm playing a little bit fast and loose, but no,
I got you.
Yeah.
McFay, you and Bodaway are still in the room. All this is like happening in like a split second in like real time. So you just see sort of you see Michael
Fair
O'Connor
enough.
staring at Faraday for like a couple of seconds while this is going on.
Yeah. And obviously,
he's gonna get
go ahead.
distracted. I'm sorry, he's gonna get distracted because if anybody stares at McFay for more than a second, they get a couple of flies in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to distract. That's not distracting me right now.
Okay,
the
so
third eye has
in
got my attention.
In the mental landscape, what are you doing, Michael O'Connor?
At this point, I'm going to force myself out of the vision. I'm going to close my third eye. I'm going to reject the chair. I'm going to reject the offer, and I'm just going to close the third eye and.
Yep, you snap back into yourself. Very little time appears to have passed. For a few moments, as you break the link and you're looking at Faraday, for a few moments you can see like this ghostly image of this beautiful woman stood behind him with her hands on his shoulders. She smiles at him and then she dissipates like an early morning mist. But only you saw that.
At this point, you can all see me rubbing my temples with both hands. So, demon possession.
Yeah.
And he points to McPhee. Changeling?
Cheers, mate.
Fucking wonderful.
Then all of you are a natural.
A what? Oh, look at McPhee like, a what?
I will note to the Indian. He says, "I would note that you are in fact unnatural. I am of the core of the earth."
And I'm about as natural as they come, sir. I have a mother and a father. Wonderful people. Good Christians. I just expand the definition of normality, let's just say.
I'm just a guy trying to keep some demon at bay. Maybe kill it at some point.
Okay. So
anyway, I'm butt naked. I'm off to get dressed.
Okay, so
that's a good idea.
We're going to cut away from that for a few moments to downstairs, where I believe Vincent Hart is still in the saloon. The sort of push doors open, and you see a fat gentleman wearing a sheriff's badge, like a gun holstered on his belt, and a wide-brimmed hat on. Comes walking in, and as he walks in, under his breath, you hear him as Hunt say, "Oh no, not again." And you see him sort of like looking at all the rubble and devastation that's around in the room.
Offer him a drink.
He walks over and he says, thank you, stranger," and he like downs his like rock gut in one, turns to the barkeep and he's like, "Roscoe, what the hell's going on here?" The barman's like, "Wow, we had some strangers in. I don't really know what's going on, Sheriff, to tell you the truth. But, poor old Ruby, well, she's been hurt. She's been looked after, though. Mr. O'Connor's looking after her." The sheriff says, "Well, perhaps I should," and he tilts his hat up with one finger, "perhaps I should go up and make sure the little lady's all right." Well, if you think that's best, Sheriff, well, you're the Sheriff, of course, Sheriff Hampton, at which point the Sheriff starts walking up the stairs. He pauses just as he reaches the bottom stair, turns towards you, Hart, and he says, I don't normally take drinks off people without knowing the name, stranger.
Hart.
Hart, eh? Hart. Tell me, Mr. Hart, what's been occurring here?
From what I can gather so far, young gentleman got frisky with the prostitute. The roof fell in.
You notice, oddly enough, as you say that, like a look of relief crosses his face, which is a little bit odd given the circumstances. But he nods, tips his hat at you, and he turns and walks up the stairs. You guys upstairs, you can hear these like quite sort of heavy footfalls coming up the creaking stairs. And we jump back to you guys upstairs.
Yeah, he probably catches my naked butt cheeks as I walk into the next room.
Indeed, you sort of like cross the landing naked, sort of swinging through, as it were. As you see this like fat old sheriff sort of huffing a little bit as he's like walking up the stairs. He's obviously a bit out of condition. He looks at you and he's like, "God damn it, man! Get some clothes on. Have some respect."
I'll turn to him. I'll literally turn around like fully butt naked. I go,
He's
I'm
like,
trying. Will you just let me get my clothes? And I'll turn around. Walk back.
Just you're walking off. He's like, "Where's Ruby?"
McFay will step out of the doorway. I believe this way.
You see him sort of like he shakes his head and he's like, "Ugh," as your naked companion walks off to get his clothes. He's like, "Much obliged, sir," and he walks to stand in the doorway of the room and obviously surveys the scene. And he's like, now
As the
here.
sheriff looks in, he'll see that O'Connor's just tucking Ruby into the bed. She's just sleeping peacefully now.
Yeah, he moves over. He walks over and he nods his hat at him. He's like, "O'Connor."
Sheriff?
He walks in. He says, "Well, now, if this isn't a strange situation and no mistake, tell me what's been occurring. Roofs falling in, people wandering around naked as the day they were born."
Well, there was a little accident. And the roof came in, and Ruby happened to be in the room at the time. But she's all right. She's going to be a little sore for the next few days, and she's just going to need some bed rest. But beyond that, nothing strange here, Sheriff.
He looks at you and he says, and his voice lowers a little bit, did she say anything unusual?"
Not at all.
Again, you notice a look of like relief on his face. He says, "Well, since Roscoe says you're looking after Miss Ruby, I suppose nothing more for me to be done here. I've got plenty of jobs I need to be getting on with, but you'll stay out of trouble now. You hear me? I know this isn't the town it used to be, but I'm the law in this town."
Of course, Sheriff. Anytime.
As the sheriff goes by, McFay's gonna subtly take a smell at him, as if you were like noting cologne, but not to be too noticeable.
That's absolutely fine. He smells a little bit sweaty, as he's obviously been he's quite out of condition and he's quite worn out. He's like huffing and puffing a little bit as he's walked up this big flight of stairs. But you don't notice anything particularly unusual about him.
Yeah, he was taking more of a spiritual smell, but yes.
Yeah, you don't register anything unusual on him. He walks past you all, gives you all like quite a sort of penetrating look, as though he's like remembering your faces as he walks past. And then he's like, "Well, you'll stay out of trouble." And he turns around and you hear him sort of like as he walks down the stairs, leaving you guys alone with poor Ruby. You can see you can see that outside dusk has now passed. It's now quite dark outside.
If things keep going on the way they are, this whole town is going to know about every bump in the night that's ever passed through the streets.
Very exciting, very exciting. So,
exciting, is it?
my appetite is up now. Off to find some dinner.
Fucking fairies.
Okay.
You're right, they'll be roaming.
So what are you all doing?
I'm literally going to go and stand outside of the bar and have a cigar.
Okay, you go and stand outside the bar. You're smoking a nice big, like, fat Havana style cigar. The Roscoe, the landlord, comes out and stands next to you. He's sort of wiping his like sweaty bald head, and he's like, "Don't suppose you got another one of them, Mister?"
I'll pull out the packet of thin cigars.
He takes one off you. You light it for him. He takes a big like inhalation. He's like, "Oh, I needed that," and that taps it off to one side. So, you strangers reckon on settling? You staying long?
I'm just passing through. I'm looking for a bounty.
He says, "Yeah, well, that's often the way of it now. So since the mines has dried up, well," he says, "whole town's going to rack and ruin." And he sort of looks a bit sadly back into the ruined remnants of his main saloon room.
Well, at least there's no cowboys.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose that's true. He says, we don't get much call for them round here. Well, they were. And he taps off his cigar again. Although I hear there's a posse of marshals on their way here soon to a prisoner transfer and all that. Not that we've got a judge now in town, you know.
What kind of prisoner?
He says, well, that young woman killed a fellow, and not in my saloon, out on the streets, and well, Sheriff Hampton jailed her, didn't he? Well, what choice did he have? I mean, she claimed not to remember any of it, but wow, it's a likely looking story, isn't it?
You mean like Ruby just now?
No, Ruby's a good girl. She wasn't doing any harm. Like they say, rotting timbers. I mean, this place is old, but no. Well, this woman. Well, she went after old Betty Knowles. It was. Well, she went after this fella with a knife, like cut him to pieces, from what I heard. Not that I saw it myself or anything, but
your Ruby's just scored a number 8 in the back of one of those blokes, isn't there?
He looks a bit worried when you say that. Obviously, not having seen the number on the back of your naked companion, and he says, "Well, it's a funny thing you should mention it." He says, "I heard from old Jemima that well, when Betty cut up this fella, that she cut a number into him as well. Number 7, I heard.
7.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't like to gossip much, but you know, well, word gets around, doesn't it?
Has there been 6 other murders?
Yeah, now you come to mention it. Yeah, most of them have all been shipped off mine, but there's only old Sheriff Hampton keeping Betty under lock and key until the marshals can turn up and take her off his hands. Like I say, we can't try him here. We ain't got no judge, you see.
You got a funeral house around here.
Well, yeah, but it's been closed for a long while now. Like I say, we ain't got many people. There ain't many people dying.
Well, you know, all these dead bodies turning up, these murders, I thought he might have a bit more information on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got them laid up. He says, well, you need to go and speak to old Isaiah. Although I should tell you, he is a bit deaf and he's getting on a bit. Like I say, not much call for his services around here. But yeah, if anyone's got the bodies in state, it'll be him.
Right. And your lawman, what's he done about his other 6 ones?
So as well, there's not been a great deal he could do. From what I heard, they all said they couldn't remember actually doing it. So, well, he's locked them up until they could be taken off his hands. I mean, what more could he do, really? I don't mean to speak ill of our sheriff. I mean, Sheriff Hampton's is a good and forthright man, but well, let's just say he likes a clear and like simple solution. As far as he's concerned, once the marshals have come in and taken him off his hands, well, that's his job done, isn't it?
When did he send for him?
Oh, it'll be a few days ago now, but well, it'll take him a while to get out here. We're not exactly in the friendliest of locations, are we?
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to go and find the one with the number in his back, and we're going to have a word with this Isaiah then.
Well, he says, yeah, if you want to go to the funeral home, it's just down Main Street down here. To take your third on your right, you can't miss it. It's a big old wooden building. There'll be coffins out the front.
I'll head back in then and go and find my knowledgeable friend.
Okay, so no problems. As you're sort of heading back in, you can see Faraday now wearing his clothes has just sort of like moved back onto the landing, presumably heading back into the room that had Ruby in. You're sort of stood at the bottom of the stairs, Hart. You can see Faraday at the top of them, now thankfully clothed.
Faraday, come here.
All right, Hart. Come down, sir. What do you want?
There's been 6 other murders, well, 7 other murders. All
7.
the numbers scored on the back.
Oh, well. Seems whoever the murderer is has messed up there. Oh, mate, they haven't done me.
So let's go to the funeral home and have a quick look.
Okay, so
Yeah, right.
The
We're
rest,
gonna
of
get the rest
you,
of the party.
yeah, the rest of you are in the room upstairs with the unconscious Ruby. You obviously hear only Faraday's side of the conversations. You hear him going, well, they've messed up. I'm number 8, and well, they ain't done me yet. I'll go and get the others.
Yeah, at this point, O'Connor would have already been leaving the room, going downstairs to the common area, and reaching behind the bar and grabbing a bottle of Irish whiskey and starting to pour himself a drink, just sort of sitting there at the bar, cradling his head as if he has a massive headache.
You see Roscoe, the barkeeper, is just like coming back in, having had this cigar outside. He raises an eyebrow, seeing me the bottle, and he's like, put it on the tab, shall I?
And I just wave my hand at him.
He's like, yeah, I thought so. And he goes and stands back behind the bar.
I'll say to Faraday, I'll say to Hart, basically with Connor's at the bar, I'll say, just like to him, that one there's got some kind of sight or something, so he might know a lot more about what happened to Ruby or what she is.
Okay, so while this is going on, what's McFay doing?
McFay, I'd say he broke out some jerky from a hidden pouch pack area. Instead of cigars, he carries jerky. And as he's chewing on it, he looks over at the Indian and Mr. Bodaway, you smelled a bit hungry. And he'll offer him a bit of jerky.
Thank you. I've pulled up a chair and just sort of rested my rifle on, and I'm basically facing the bed in order to kind of guard her, if you will. But yeah, he happily takes the jerky and starts chewing on it.
I'll pop my head into the room and kind of say, like, we're going to be checking the funeral home if anyone wants to come with us. And some other murders.
And you said you were number 8? There
Yeah.
were 8 murders?
Apparently I'm murder number 8. But I'm still here, so... Jury's out on that one still.
Would she be alright?
Well, it reminds me of that time when some guy jumped off a 5-story building. As he was falling, everyone in the building heard him say, "I'm doing all right at the moment." He died.
So your answer is no?
I'm doing all right at the moment. I'll walk out.
Well, funeral homes are always interesting. Always have a bit of a odd smell to them. He'll walk out behind him.
Okay, so you all sort of congregate in the main bar area of the saloon. Obviously, Hart, you know where the Isaiah's funeral home is, etc. Everyone else has joined you in the bar, following after your companion, Mr. Faraday.
You know, we all fit. Right, it's this way. Head towards the funeral home.
Okay, so assuming you're all going, you head out. You follow Hart down Main Street, take the third on the right, and eventually you come to a large, dilapidated wooden building. There are a number of wooden coffins outside. You can see an elderly-looking gentleman sat in a rocking chair. He's wearing a black suit and a battered top hat that have obviously seen better days. He has white mutton chops and a moustache. He's wearing small, round spectacles. As you approach, he sort of like stands up, dusts himself down a bit, and he's like, good evening, good evening.
Good evening. I'll start shouting. Good evening.
Hey?
Shout louder. Good evening.
He's like, yes, lovely evening, lovely evening. And he sort of gestures to some of the coffins next to him. You can see he's got basically like a a cloth tape measure tucked in his suit jacket pocket. He pulls it out and he moves up to you, Hart, and he just starts like measuring you, and he's like, "And what can I do for you, sir? Nice wooden number, is it? We did have some oak in stock. Yes, I'm sure we've got something that can fit you."
I will shout again. I'm looking for the 6 other murder bodies.
He looks a bit aghast at you and he says, I'm afraid that there's none of that sort of hanky-panky available here, young man.
I want none of that. I just need to examine the bodies because of the murders.
We don't normally let people look at the stiffs, he says.
I will show him my what passes for government work when it comes to bounty hunting.
He says, I suppose if you're a law keeper, come with me, I'm just sizing them up at the moment for the coffins. Got them all laid out nice and neat. That's how I like it. And he, come inside. And he leads you inside through what appears to be a small waiting room with a number of battered chairs into a large room. There's some tables spread out, and you can see 6 bodies, men and women, lying on the tables. He says, I'm still dealing with the latest one to come in, and so I'm afraid I can't really let you look at him at the minute. These are the other 6 recent additions. And he sort of chuckles as though he sort of like made an in-joke that's passed you all by. Is there anything else I can do for you, young fella?
I just need to know exactly what killed each body.
He says, well, that's no mystery. And he moves across and he like pulls down the sheets that are covering them, and you can see that they all have like various sort of like stab wounds on them. He says, knife wounds mostly. He says, this one over here, strangled, I'll wager. Look at the bruising around the neck. Well, you can't see it quite as much now, sir, since I've been to work on her, but I do pride myself in making people look their best when they're going for their final rest. It's a point of pride to me, you see.
Yeah, and what killed body 7?
He says, no secret there again. A knife wound. Poor fellow was almost cut to ribbons when he came in. That's why it's taken me so long to work on him. Yes, it's been, even to someone of my skill, it's been it's been quite the taxing job, I'll tell you that.
I can imagine. Do you mind if I get one of the physicians out there to just check the bodies?
No, of course, feel free. It's not like they're going anywhere.
Thank you. I'll head
Sorry,
back out then.
what?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, think nothing of it, young man. Think nothing of it.
I'll head back out the door and select, obviously, the one with the knowledge and the one that he said it has sight. It's like, right, you two go in there and look at these bodies. Mainly stab wounds, 1 strangulation.
Okay, so Hart comes out, he points at Faraday and Lunan Michael O'Connor and says, tells you, get in there, have a look at the bodies, strangulation, stab wounds, etc.
Yeah, we'll walk in.
Yeah, at this point, Lunan's still drinking from the bottle. He has took the bottle with him and is drinking it from it the whole time as I walked over here. Yeah, look at the bodies, blah, blah. Walks inside the funeral home.
Okay, you see these 6 bodies laid out in state, as I've said. That one of them has contusions around the neck, the others all have stab wounds. They're sort of lying facing up on the ceiling, their arms crossed over their chests. They've obviously, their wounds have been sort of cleaned up, etc., presumably by the old man in the suit who stood in the corner.
As we walk in and he's drinking from the bottle, I'll kind of stand there for a second look and I'll kind of grab the bottle off him and have a big swig out of it and pass it back.
So what do you think here, Devil Man?
Well, something to do with ghosts, something to do with possessions. Let's have a look, see what else we can find out. I'm starting
After you.
I'm starting to look around the bodies.
Apparently you know things.
I'm going to start looking around the bodies and just checking them out and thinking about what I saw and stuff. And at that point, I want to use my knowledge, but I want to use it in a way where me myself, I'm quite a novice. I'm just learning as I go, but that's why I'm using the demon as well. So I'm going to go into the demonscape and basically try and force her to give me some knowledge on like what's occurring or what ghosts do, kind of thing.
Okay, since you're forcing your demon to give you knowledge, I'm going to say this is like an opposed guile roll, because effectively you're trying to like beat her at a hand of cards.
Yeah.
So if you make your guile roll, and I will make one for your passenger.
Okay. I got a 3. I got a 0 on the roll. I got 3 altogether, but I'd like to use a fate point, and I'll use it on basically the hardline card shape with a possessing demon to basically win this game off her.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, you have beaten my roll for that. So in your mental landscape, you turn over your hand of cards. You've won the demon woman fate, the succubus facing you, sighs a little and says, well, as she throws her cards down, well, it's clear that they've been possessed by some form of spirit, an echo of people who have passed on. And given that that numbers are involved, I should hazard a guess that it's some sort of ritual where a certain number of sacrifices, if you want to be dramatic, are required.
Okay. Do I have to tick off knowledge for that as well?
You don't for this case, because you forced it out of the demon. That's why you made the roll rather than doing that.
Okay. Can I do a tick to try and force more information out of her?
Yep. Tick one of your knowledge boxes.
Yeah.
She sighs and then says, what else would you like to know? I know you've beat me at this hand, but
I'd like to know what kind of a ritual would be used and how many components would be involved.
Well, I've hardly got enough information to narrow down the exact ritual. Why don't you ask your sorcerer friend these sort of questions? There are many different numbers that have significance in the supernatural world without knowing the exact ritual.
We're on 8 now. 7's a power number. What's next? And how many be involved in the powerful ritual like that?
If I had to hazard a guess, I would say perhaps maybe 10. 10 is the number of perfection and completeness after all. But I feel compelled to say that I should warn you, this is only an educated guess. This isn't really my speciality. Now deal another hand. At which point you go back to the card game and you're back in the room.
Yeah, I'll kind of come back out and I'll turn to O'Connor and go, well, it looks like some kind of ritual's being performed with said ghosts. I think at least 3 more sacrifices need to be made, including my own.
That would be including yourself, yes, of course. That would be 10, yeah?
That'd be 10 altogether.
10, big number. Important number.
It's an important number. I don't know how many people would be involved or how many would be involved in something like this, but this is a big ritual. This is no small feat.
Well, it might not be a ritual. It could just be what it appears to be, but we'll have to get some more information. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to need a couple of minutes of silence, if you don't mind.
Of course, work away.
I'm going to pass him the bottle while I do that, and I'm just going to kind of go between 2 of the bodies, and I'm going to put a hand on each of them. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do is I want to sense for the same ghostly residue that I sensed in Ruby, and if it does exist, what I'm trying to do is, as a create advantage roll, I want to stack up some more advantage invokes on the ghostly residue.
Yep, go for it.
I have some plans for this knowledge and this information later, but I want to get all the facts straight here, so give you a roll for it, and it's a 6 total.
Okay, I'm going to give you another 2 invokes on the ghostly residue. You do indeed sense the same residue, although you think that these people were each possessed by different ghosts, but they were all possessed by ghosts.
Interesting. Now, I want to take it a step further, and I want to, and I'll give you another roll for it if necessary, but I want to try to detect any magical residue that might have lingered. I'm basically searching for signs of necromancy, which is something obviously that would interests me.
Okay, I'm not going to make you make another roll for that due to the roll you got previously. You do indeed sense the residue of dark necromantic magic lingering around the body.
So, as my hands are out there, and from Faraday's perspective, he could see my eyes have rolled in the back of my head, and he can sort of see me. I'm very rigid between these two bodies, but I sort of snap to, and say, fucking necromancers.
Yeah. I'll basically. Are you saying that out loud?
Yeah.
I'll be like, well, the likely source is always the usual source.
There's nothing always likely when it comes to magic, but
I think you'll find. Usually it is.
Multiple ghost possessions and the faint trace of dark, squeamish-inducing, grotesque magic. Yeah, I'd say that's a necromancer at work here.
An old teacher of mine used to say, where there's smoke, there's a pyromancer.
Okay, as they're having this conversation, the three of you are outside, especially yourself, Baudouin. You notice what appears to be a group of 6 people. Like I say, it's quite dark outside. Obviously, there's no street lamps in this period. There's only the light of the moon shining down. You notice what appears to be 6 people moving towards you from the end of the street. They're moving in an odd sort of jerky fashion, almost as though their movements aren't entirely coordinated.
I'm going to keep an eye on them. How low is the light at this point?
It's pretty low. There's just like slivers of moonlight shining down. However, as you're watching these people getting closer, as they move through a sort of break between the buildings and the moonlight shining down on them more fully, you can see that each of them has extremely pale skin and their eyes appear to be entirely black.
Cool. Where's McFay for this?
You're literally stood outside next to Baudouin along with Vincent Hart.
Yeah, I basically grab McFay by one of his lapels and go, look.
Yes, very interesting.
As you say, look, and it becomes obvious to these 6 people moving towards you that you've spotted them because you've like spun McFay round and pointed him at them. You both Hart, Baudouin, and McFay, you see these 6 people sort of almost like drop down into like a crouch, like an animalistic sort of crouch, and they start running towards you, dropping to all fours.
Pull my gun.
Yeah, same.
That's absolutely fine. They've got to make the length of the street. You guys have got like a couple of rounds before they get to you. So what do you guys want to do? Players going first?
Shotgun.
Yep, rifle.
Okay, anyone who's shooting at them, I'm just going to make one defense roll for them. Anyone who's shooting at them, make your roll and tell me what you get.
Which stat do we do for shooting?
It would normally be force.
Force? Okay, fair enough.
I got 4.
Okay.
Force I am rolling. I have a 3.
Okay.
Right, that's a 0, so I'm going to invoke my Aspect Guardian, the Chiricahua, to re-roll.
That's absolutely fine.
Because that was a shit roll.
It's not me for once.
Probably not as shit as mine.
Okay, that's better. Yeah, that's a 4 for me.
Okay, so there's this hail of gunfire from you guys, and between you all, you have easily got enough to like annihilate these like 6 people that are running towards you. So those of you inside, you hear this like of like gunshots going off, and then the loud bark of a shotgun blast. You guys pretty much like, as these guys are running towards you, they're moving very quickly. They cover the distance to you in almost no time. In fact, one of them gets almost close enough to Baudouin to like leap at you, and as he does, you see his like canine teeth extending, and then there's just this bark of gunfire, and you guys just like take all 6 of them down. They're like lying face down or on their backs. You can see like some of them are still twitching a little bit, but you effectively removed them as a combat threat.
I fucking hate vampires.
Yeah, I go over to the nearest one and just sort of roll them over with my boots. Just to
McFay will say, back off, because they always travel in packs, and he'll be looking to the rooftops and down the street.
Okay.
Okay, I do what he says.
Okay, so you're just sort of like, you've rolled one over, you've taken your foot of it. McVeigh, as you sort of like look around, for a few moments, you see what appears to be a figure wearing all black, but with like a pale face illuminated by the moonlight, standing on the rooftops. Then as you look up, you briefly see these black eyes staring down at you, and a faint hint of a smile on this pale-skinned face. Then there's a swish of black fabric as the person ducks away from the edge of the roof.
O'Connor, having heard the gunfire, runs out of the funeral parlor, looks around, looks down at the bodies, sees what they look like. Ah, vampires too now. Great. Ah.
McFay will point to the roof and say, more than likely, the one who was directing them was up there.
Oh. Didn't want to come and introduce themselves, though.
As you're sort of saying that, you hear a hiss of breath from the one that you sort of roll over, bowed away, and in a rasping, sort of extremely pained voice, because this guy's pretty much done for, you hear him rasp out, "The master will make this place ours. You have no place here."
I'm going to go and find some wood to make stakes.
That's fine. Yeah, you stamp on his neck. He's like, "Ugh." You quickly find some wood. You're in a Wild West ghost town. Finding wood is not a problem.
Did the people change back, or do they retain their vampiric appearance or bestial appearance?
They retain their vampiric appearance. They're all still like alive, but they're just like massively incapacitated because they're riddled with like gunshots.
Oh, well, then McFay will load his shotgun and give each one a headache.
Okay, so you start going around and like shooting some in the face, at which point, Hart, you come running back up with several stakes that you quickly manufacture with like, your knife, just like whittled the end off them.
I'll come out at that point, and when Hart comes up with the stakes, I'll hold my hand out to take one off him and go, "Vamps, is it?"
Definitely.
And
Okay.
start doing the old in the heart.
Yep, you pass one of the stakes over to Faraday Hart, and then you slam one down into the chest of the creature that had just spoken to Bodaway. As you like slam it directly into his heart, he lets out this ear-piercing, almost bestial shriek that seems to echo throughout the entire town. It's like reaching up as though he's trying to grab the stake, and then just like...
I jump back at that.
Move on to the next one.
They were young. I suspect probably recently turned.
Yeah.
Or else your bullets would have probably done a little less on them.
Yeah, you can tell as you're sort of walking around, you hear the bark of the shotgun as McFay's like blowing the heads off a couple of them, and Faraday's staking some of the others, again with screams as a result. O'Connor, you can see that because they're not like disintegrating or anything as they've been staked, you're most likely right that these are fairly recent turns to the court.
I guarantee you their master will be a bit harder to put down than that.
Of course he will.
I'll turn to Boyer, who were like kind of shocked by what we just did, and go, "So, how good are you with a bow? Are your people talented with that?"
We are talented with that. But I do not have my own bow. It was destroyed in the raids.
Oh, we best get you one.
This up.
You're going to need it. Best get you one.
If it does the same as those stakes do, then I will certainly take up a new bow.
By this point in time, there is the final bark of McFay's shotgun as he blows the head off the last of them. All of these 6 creatures are now dead.
I suggest we get rid of the bodies. To anyone else, it might look like we just murdered 6 people.
Yeah.
As you're saying that, you suddenly hear this voice from behind you, be like, "Oh Lord!" And you turn around and see like the old like funeral directors, like obviously having probably only heard like 2 of the shots, has like come out and there's all these bodies there. Oddly enough, he doesn't seem to like really like panic. He immediately takes out his like tape measure and he starts like moving out to the bodies and he's like,
As the funeral director does that, O'Connor kind of sighs and reaches into his pocket again, pulls out a couple of silver nuggets, goes up to him, drops them in the man's coat pocket, and says, "You never saw any of this. We were never here."
Pardon?
I said, "You never saw this, and we were never here."
Oh, right. He nods and says, well, I wouldn't mind if you gents could give me a hand getting these fellows inside. He says, oh, business has never been so brisk.
Don't take the stake out.
I'll grab one of the legs and look at Boy.
Grabs the arms of the one the Faraday's carrying.
Come on, Boy, get ahead.
As I do so, I make a remark. These white men are very easily swayed by money. It seems like you pay them and all the trouble goes away.
Money makes life easier, by the way.
For you, maybe.
Okay, and between you all, you easily get the bodies inside, and you leave Isaiah, the old funeral director, to continue like measuring them up and presumably fitting them out for coffins.
Yeah, McFay is not going to dirty his hands with disgusting vampire bodies. He's just going to move on.
Fair enough, McFay. Fair enough.
I'm going to go to one of the churches.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. You find a church nearby. Again, like most of the town now, it's slightly dilapidated. But
Has it still got a baptism bowl?
Yeah,
Take the water.
absolutely fine. Mark down that you've got some holy water.
McFay had been watching the building that he had saw the figure on. Were there other buildings attached to it, or was it a standalone?
No, pretty much. It's quite most of these buildings that join onto each other, and then there's just like gaps for streets. There's not really many detached buildings in Tombstone.
Was there? There was no other movement though, right? Didn't see anything else moving. Very well.
Right, so we've got necromantic vampires, guys.
When completely out of sight in a dark alley, McFay's going to make his way up to the rooftop.
Okay, that's not a problem. As you're making your way up to the rooftop, you can hear this like coming from the rooftop. Sounds like someone's coughing or in pain or something similar.
Well, when he collects himself, he'll head that direction.
Okay, as you move across the rooftop, you don't see any sign of this supposedly vampiric figure that you saw earlier. However, as you move across the rooftops, you see a figure lying on its back on the rooftop, and as you move closer, you see this horrendous humanoid who appears to be some sort of amalgamation of spider and man. He has like mandibles like a spider, it's multifaceted eyes. You can see he's lying on his back, and there's what looks like a cavalry saber shoved through his chest.
Just to be clear, the thing that's coughing is the spider person.
Indeed.
With the saber?
Indeed. And as you're sort of like looking at the sort of mandibles and the sort of chitinous pincers that have erupted from this person's body, they look very similar to something that might have caused the wounds on the homesteaders that you encountered on your way to Tombstone.
I see. Well, McFay will approach without any sort of aggression and say, well, my dark spidery friend, it looks like you came into some bad sorts. Can I help in any way?
It looks over at you, and in this sort of like slightly like clicking and hissing voice, is like, I'm so hungry.
Right. I often have hunger myself. Well, what?
Give us something.
What happened to you?
Sweet. The man brings steel and pain. It burns.
The saber burns? You want me to take the saber out? Is that what you want?
It clicks at you and sort of nods its head ever so slightly.
Is the saber like piercing all the way through him, or just kind of like slash into him, or how's it set?
You can see that it looks as though the saber's been plunged through this creature's chest, and it's actually gone into the roof below, so it must have been plunged with incredible force. It's like embedded in the stone roof.
Nice. So he's not going anywhere.
No. And you can see that his struggles are getting like weaker and weaker, as though he's basically slowly dying.
Well, he's going to look over his shoulders to see if anybody's watching, and he's going to go ahead and accept his aspect of behaving in an inhumane way, and he's going to watch him die. Maybe like poke at him a little bit.
Absolutely fine. As he, with sort of like probably one of his last couple of breaths, the thing looks at you and just almost like quivers in a sort of almost like orgasmic manner, and then says, "Oh, but they were so sweet." And then it stops moving.
Well, he's going to keep looking at it, see if it changes. Often things go back to different forms when they die.
As you watch slowly, this like the body of this creature starts to like collapse in on itself, sort of slowly like crumbling away, as though the process of decomposition had been sped up.
Interesting.
After like a minute or two, there's just like a handful of dust which is dispersed by the light wind that has arisen.
Leaving the sword,
Indeed.
the saber.
You can see it's a very, it looks like an antique, but it's been like immaculately kept. It's like in tip-top condition.
He'll wrap the handle in a cloth or a gloved hand if he has it.
Yeah, that's fine.
And try to free it from the rooftop.
Okay, make me in fact, no, don't worry about a roll. You've got plenty of time. It takes you a little while, because like I say, it's embedded in the roof, but you do manage to pull it free. You have this ornate, ancient cavalry saber. As you look at the blade, you can see it shines, not sort of like glowing, but the metal of it shines in the moonlight as you lift it up.
Well, he's going to keep looking around him because this is very curious that somebody would leave an artifact like this behind. Is there another body? Is there any remains of like blood or anything around the area?
You can see there are like splatters of blood, but you think they must have come from the creature because they've got a strange sort of like black look to them. But you don't see any other bodies or signs of anyone else.
Curious. All right. Well, once it's all determined to be said and done, he will go over to the side of the roof and see if he can sight any of the members of this ragtag party and call them up.
Okay, you rejoin the rest of the posse are in the sort of streets below outside the funeral home.
He's going to stay. He's going to stay on the roof and have them come to him.
Okay, so McFay gestures and shouts to you from the roof of a nearby building, just across the way from the funeral home.
Actually, while all this was going on, while he was on the rooftop, while Vincent had gone off to the church, actually O'Connor just says to Faraday, "I got something I got to do," and then he goes into the streets. And he's going to go to the sheriff's office. Now, if I'm understanding correctly, all of the people accused of murdering somebody are held at the jail currently, correct?
No, only the latest murderer is.
Only the latest one, right? Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so you head off to the sheriff's station. You see that Sheriff Hampton, in the meantime, has like returned there, and he's sat with his feet up on the desk, bottle on the table. You can see that it's a very small sheriff's office. It's like a single jail cell behind him. And seated in the cell is a young woman with like brown hair. She's obviously been crying. She's sort of like sat there on the bunk, the bed inside the jail cell.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk around to the back of the building, position myself, 30 or 40 feet towards the back, as far back as I can manage with the buildings being what they are. And I'm going to focus on the area that is the wall to the cell of Betty, and I'm going to use my magic to pull the wall down.
Okay, go for it. Make me a roll.
All right. Let's see here.
Could I, because I don't trust this, or kind of follow after him?
Yeah. Okay. So
a bit back.
O'Connor, since Faraday's like following you, would you have changed your plan in any way, or?
No, I don't care that he's following me. He can follow me if he wants to.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm indifferent. I'm indifferent to him in the sense that he's following me. He might even notice that I noticed him, but chose not to acknowledge him.
Yeah.
That was a. So it's a total of 6.
Okay, describe how you pull the wall down with your magic. What does Faraday see as he's watching you?
He sees have a hand outstretched, and he feels wind coming from the street, swirling from the night sky, and wind seems to sort of coalesce around this building in a particular square along the wall. And then as my hand is outstretched, I pull it back, and the wall just goes as if it was just sucked away by like a tornado.
There's a scream from inside from Betty Knowles. It's like the wall just like disintegrates effectively as far as she's concerned.
And just to make sure that, because obviously she might be too afraid to act of her own accord, I'm just going to also, with my other hand, I'm going to cast a second spell just to lift her up and bring her to me.
That's fine. I'm not going to make you make a roll for that.
Yeah.
So there's another gust of wind which sort of lifts her and brings her out to the back of the joust, and she pretty much like lands in your arms, effectively.
And then I just put my finger to my lips and go shh, and then just kind of peel off into the night.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, can you make me a haste roll? This is basically to see if you can like get away before like the sheriff gets his shit together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, at this point, I would like to help because I like a damsel in distress.
Yeah, we know you do.
Yeah.
Okay,
so that was a 3 for my haste roll.
Okay, I'm going to give you an extra +1 because you're being assisted by Faraday. So
Fantastic.
Let's make my roll.
Could I actually, to help him out, and I'm a player, when he does the whole whisking her body over to him kind of thing with the wind, I will intercede to get her and give her my best beautiful smile and do what he wanted to do, but go with him.
Okay, so I'm going to say basically as she's wafted out and into the arms of O'Connor, you sort of like move in as well, Faraday. So as she sort of lands, you've both got your arms out like that. She's like across both of your two arms. As she like looks up a little bit scared, and you're just sort of like looking down at her.
Yeah, I freely pass her to Faraday, and then I motion for him to come, and I just bolt down the alleyways. And the byways.
The two of you leg it down an alleyway. You can hear the sheriff sort of like shouting, but obviously he was like at his feet up. He was relaxing. He's like taking him a while to get his shit together, and you guys are gone before he's like had the time to get his gun out and sort of like unlock the cell door. He's probably not even seen you because he was facing the other way.
Yeah, once we're several blocks away, huffing and puffing, of course, as we were just legging it.
Yeah.
I tell Faraday to put the lady down. Ooh. Now, Betty, you understand.
She looks at you like her lips quivering. She still looks absolutely terrified.
Shh, don't talk. You understand that here you're wanted for murder, right?
She nods.
Okay. I pull out my pouch. I look inside it, see what's left of my most recent prospecting run. I put it in her hand. I want you to take this. I want you to go far, far away. I hear California is beautiful this time of year. Go start a brand new life and forget all about this. Okay?
She nods, and as she's like reaching out for the silver, you notice it starts to feel a little bit colder. But then as you pass her the silver, the temperature goes back to normal. And she sort of like nods and takes it. You see her look around, and then she starts like running off down the street, basically trying to get away.
Yeah. Well, now, Faraday, shall we go kill ourselves some vampires?
Yeah, let's go and sort out some necromantic vampires.
Yeah.
As you say that, you hear a mocking voice from the other end of the street say, I don't think that's what's going to be occurring here. And you see a figure step out from the shadows wearing what appears to be basically a mock-up of like an old sort of southern general's uniform, save that it is all in black cloth. He tips his wide-brimmed hat back, and you see this cadaverous, corpse-like face beneath it with these black eyes.
So, I suppose we have you to thank for all this disruption.
In part.
Well, we ain't going to let you finish. I'm going to pull out my gun on him. try and shoot his brim hat off with his skull.
At which point he steps to the left, like dodging your first shot with superhuman speed, and you can see that where he was standing, there's like a small woman who was stood in the shadows next to him, and he says, "Nellie, if you wouldn't mind being a dear." At which point she got like a slightly glazed look on her face, but she nods and raises her hands. You feel a thrum of dark magic, O'Connor, and immediately a wind starts whipping through the street that you're in, and you can hear the voices and the cries of hungry shades inside the wind.
Okay, so there's two things that O'Connor would like to try to do here. First, he turns to Faraday, and he's like, "Run, get the others." And then what I would like to do is I would like to try and create a magical barrier that will basically block the undead and the spirits, basically as a create advantage. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to use maybe some of my invokes from Ghostly Residue as connection to this magic at this point. So can I go ahead and try to put that create advantage up? It'll be basically like a barrier across the street. That way maybe it gives us a chance to escape here or whatnot.
That's fine. Make your roll.
And also Faraday will concede and heroically run to get everyone else.
I understand.
Trying to look at the most heroic as possible.
So let's see, it's a 3. I'm going to use...
I will tell you need to beat a 4.
Yeah, I'm going to use one of the invokes from Ghostly Residue to bump that up to... that'll bring it up to a 5 to create the barrier.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So you have one free invoke of that barrier advantage.
Yeah. So
as you bring up this barrier, you can feel the shades that have been summoned and are rising this wind, sort of trying to act against your barrier, like sort of tugging your hair, your clothes, making it difficult for you to concentrate. But you grit your teeth and you raise this barrier. You can feel them sort of like the spectral force of this dark magic and these shades, like almost pounding on your barrier as though they're like searching it for weaknesses and probing it. At this point, I'm going to ask Faraday, can you please make me a haste roll? And this is just see how quickly you can get back with the posse.
Nope, I've got 0 on my roll. My haste is 1. So I got a bit lost.
Okay, so it's going to take you 2 rounds to get back with the posse, basically. So O'Connor's going to have to deal with this like shit for 2 rounds, basically.
Good luck, O'Connor.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Okay, just give me a second. I'm just going to stick the light on here, and then we will crack on with the first 2 rounds.
Sounds good.
Yeah, you would have done better with the rest of them with you, but you know.
Con will be fine.
Yeah.
He'll be ready. He's got magic and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so since you've done the raising the shield, etc., I'm going to make a go for the NPCs. So as you've raised this shield, you can feel the wind still whipping around you, O'Connor. You see a faint trace of a smile on the general dressed in black, and he withdraws a pistol, points it in your direction, and there is a loud as he fires it.
Right. Gotcha. So I'm going to defend with my evocation. And let's see. It's with force. Ugh. Let's see. That's a 3 goes to a 2.
Okay, I'm currently on a 5.
Yeah, I'm working off of a 3 right now. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather not take the hit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tick off both boxes of my combat wizard stress, add +2, which brings me up to a 5.
Okay, so that would mean that he would like get a bit of a boost effect.
He gets a boost, yeah. So basically, I raise my hand in front of me. I speak the words "Vento Lucia," and a shield barely comes into existence to stop the bullet. Although I do kind of get reeled back a couple of feet from the force of the impact.
Okay, yeah, you're sort of thrown off balance. That will be his boost, effectively, because you're sort of having to dive to one side and bring up this shield.
Yeah, exactly.
You see him sort of smile a little bit, and as he looks at you, he says, White Council, if I don't miss my guess. And he smiles a little.
Now, you ain't wrong, partner.
Okay, and then it's over to yourself. Since that was effectively the first round.
Before this goes any further, is this in view of McFay on his rooftop?
It's not at the moment. It's going to be like another round before you can get there.
Okay, yeah, so I got one more round of being by myself, taking it. So right now, what I see is I have my spirit barrier is blocking off the ghostly spell. I see a little girl.
Yeah, there's basically a little girl stood next to him with her hands raised. She's got like a bit of a glazed look on her face.
So I get the idea that she's a magical practitioner, but she looks like she's being perhaps possessed or dominated or both at the moment.
She doesn't look as though she's possessed, but she's clearly under some sort of thrall to this.
Yeah,
this
so she's being dominated by him. Yeah, that makes sense. So she I can't really do anything about it at the moment, obviously, I got to go through this vampire first. So yeah, so his little smirk and his realization of what he's dealing with, I'm going to back that up with an attack of my own.
Go for it.
So let's just do. This is the wrong time to be rolling badly. That's a 3. Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Is my scale equivalent to his, or is it less?
It's equivalent to his.
It's equivalent. Okay, so that's just I don't get that then. That's 3, 2, total of 5 on the attack roll.
Okay. And what form does your attack take?
So as I stretch out my hand towards the smirking vampire, I say Tempestuous, and a ball of swirling air forms in my hand and fires towards him like a cannonball.
Okay, the ball of swirling air strikes him on the cheek, and you see it score a line across his cheek. He smiles a little bit, raises his hand to where like a thin trickle of blood has come out, and goes. And as you watch, you see this small cut just go and disappear.
Fucking vampires.
At which point, like literally, as you're like drawing your hand back from your attack, he just says, "I believe it's my turn now." And then he like crosses the distance between you, like rapidly, literally. Before he's finished speaking, he's almost right next to you, and he just makes like a backhand sweep towards your face.
Yeah. So again, it'll be defending with my evocation. I'll go ahead and give it a roll. Oh no! Okay, that's a 3. So that's a 3 on the native roll. How bad is that?
Okay,
gap wise?
I would tell you that I'm on a 9 at the moment.
Oh, okay. I don't want to.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah. I'm going to do. So yeah, it would be either way. It'd be regardless. It would be. It wouldn't matter. I'm just going to take it as stress. Then I'm going to get thrown backwards 10 or 20 feet, smash into the floor of the ground of the road, and yeah, I take all 6 of my stress boxes to cover that.
Okay, that's absolutely. Did you use your barrier advantage to defend against that, or?
So wait, so yeah, I guess because if he went through the barrier, then clearly it wasn't keeping him out. So
yeah, I mean you can use it to knock 2 off the stress effectively.
Yeah, yeah, we'll do that. We'll go ahead and do that then. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so his hand swipes upwards blurringly quickly. At the last minute, you cause like these puffs of air that you've used for your shield to like cushion the blow slightly, but it still flings you back the length of the street. Now, luckily for you, that's the end of the second round. So at this point in time, McFay, you're sort of arriving on a rooftop just across the street. The rest of you are just coming into the street, having been led there by Faraday. So Faraday, when you met the others, what would you have told them? Like,
I was just like right into the street and goes, "There's trouble in the back alley. O'Connor's in trouble."
Okay, so following Faraday, you guys have just like run round into the street. You just arrive there just in time to see this as this vampiric creature that you obviously recognise, Bodaway, slaps O'Connor the length of the street. He lands right next to you. You can see some distance behind him at the other end of the street is this small girl. And although the weather's calm everywhere else, there's this horrendous like wind whipping through this street, and you can hear these sort of like crying, screaming voices inside the wind.
And as everyone kind of rolls up, I kind of just look up at Bodhi, and I'm sort of like winded heavily, kind of reeling from the shock of the blow. And I say, "Don't hurt the girl."
As you're having this conversation, you see the figure that's just the general, I'm going to call him this vampiric general, glances back at the young girl, has a slightly worried expression on her face as she's lowering her hands, and he says, "Don't worry, dear, soon you'll have a friend to play with." And he sort of holds up a hand in a placating gesture to her, and you see her just sort of nod again with this like glazed expression over her face. Okay, Hunt, what are you doing? Sorry, Hart, what are you doing?
I'm going to spend a fate point to declare a countermeasure for vampires.
Okay, you have to remind me how that works.
Once per session, declare that you happen to have a countermeasure that nullifies the effect of scale.
I don't think you even have to spend the fate point for it. You just use up that particular.
Yeah, it's just you've used it.
Yeah, so
I'll just use it up then to nullify this wind this girl's got going on.
Okay, not a problem. So what I'm going to say is you know that there's certain metals that can disrupt magics, and you also know that like running water tends to do the same. Now I'm going to say that there's one of those old-fashioned like styly like water pumps and a trough nearby, so you like snap off a shot Heart into this pump, and like water starts like spraying out into the streets. As it does so, the wind starts to die down a bit, and you see like a bead of sweat run down the girl's face.
Yeah, so that will be my action to start with, is to nullify this effect.
Okay, McFay, what are you doing? You're on the roof watching this.
Yeah, he's gonna if he's got access to the general, he's gonna leap off the roof, and as he does so, he's gonna throw his 2 vials of holy water together, creating a splash in front of him, and he's gonna scream as loud as he can to get the general's attention.
Okay, I'm not going to say you have to make a roll for that, because you just start throwing it generally at him. That is absolutely fine. You throw these 2 like bottles.
He's not throwing them at the general. He's splashing them in front of him so that as he falls into it, it covers him.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. You throw it down and you dive into this water. You're now at street level. A couple of little splashes sort of like splash onto the general, and he goes and like takes a few steps back away from you.
The whole point was to turn into his cloud of flies at the same time, and then dive at the general's face, mouth, ears, nose.
That's absolutely fine. So as McVeigh hits the floor and there's this splash of water, his body seems to disperse into this cloud of flies that sort of menace this vampiric general. Although he doesn't appear to be bothered as bothered as some people will, because obviously he doesn't breathe or anything like that, but it does drive him back a little, because obviously they're in his eyes, his ears, etc. Okay, so
just so I can clarify, my thought was to bring the holy water on the flies into his into his person.
Hence the hissing and him sort of stepping
okay
back.
fair enough.
If it had just been a cloud of flies, he wouldn't have been bothered. He'd just been like, don't breathe.
Yep.
But because you've got the holy water on him, he's hissed and he's now sort of being driven back almost. Okay, so Bodaway, what are you doing? You've seen all this happen.
Yeah, so I want to do a self-compel with my trouble aspect.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that he would obviously recognise my scent and be distracted for one of the others, possibly more powerful than me, to make an attack.
Okay, I'm going to suggest an alternative, because he's already distracted by what McFay is doing. What I'm going to suggest is that he will recognise your scent, and he'll summon some of his sort of like lesser like reinforcements, effectively, because he like knows you're there.
Okay.
Is that okay for you?
Yeah.
Okay, have a fate point. Okay, so as he staggers back, hissing with this cloud of flies around him, he sort of sniffs the air, and you hear, amidst all the buzzing of these flies around him, he just says, Chiricahua. And then he sort of like clicks his fingers, and you see sort of at the far end of the street, 6 guys emerge into the far end of the alleyway, moving in a similar bestial manner to the ones you saw earlier, and they surge past the young girl, pointedly not like harming her, and start heading down the street towards you.
And I open fire.
Okay, not a problem. So make your attack roll against these lesser vampires, these 6 lesser vampires.
That's a 2.
Okay, so I'm going to say that you can take out 4 of them effectively, because I got an absolutely terrible roll. So describe how you take out 4 of these bestial lesser vampires that are running towards you on all 4s.
Yeah, so I can see them a long way off, and I'm far better actually at shooting long range. So I take my time and my cunning to lift up my gun and just knock them off, almost like target practice, and they sort of knock back from each of the blows and land limply in the street.
They're sort of like running and like bounding and leaping forward. You sort of wait until the last one's just like leapt and he's in midair, and you're like, poof, your shot takes him in midair, almost spinning him around, and he slumps to the ground. You can see like the 4 you've shot are still like moving a little bit, but they're quite clearly no threat at present, leaving just 2 of them remaining. Okay, so we're going to go on now to Mr. Faraday. What are you doing?
Right, so I'm with, near Borderway, and these like lesser vampires are charged towards us. The rest of the guys are dealing with the big one. So there's 2 left coming at us as he's fired towards them. I'm going to pull out my deck of cursed cards, kind of like flick them and do a little shuffle kind of thing. And as one of them's coming towards us, I go, "Is this your card?" and flick one into his mouth. And as he touches it, that's going to be a curse on him, and I want to flick the one out. That'll be combustion.
Okay, make an attack roll.
Yep. Okay, I got a 1 on that. So can I go for Fleur?
Yep.
Yeah, so I got 3 on that.
Okay, I'm going to spend one of... I was on 3 as well for my defence. I'm going to spend one of my fate points, because we are mindless slaves of the Black Court, to up my roll to 5. So as the creature sort of leaps toward you and you say, "Is this your card?" and flick it at him, as it's sort of heading towards his face, he sort of like bats it out the way of him. It does like burst into flames and scorches his hand a little bit, but doesn't really do him any serious harm.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe this round we've just got our sort of prone magician to go next, so O'Connor.
So, right. So basically, our Fey friend is basically on top of the vampire. So
yeah,
the
he's
vampire
clouded around him. The general's distracted. He's being driven back. You
right.
See
So
where these holy water-soaked like insects are touching him.
Yeah.
There's hissing and sort of sparks coming off him as he's like.
Well, while I don't necessarily want to strike our Fey friend, I do have to deal with the most immediate powerful threat here, which is this vampire general. So I'm going to just sort of lean up and I kind of prop myself up with an arm, and I'm going to attack again. And we're gonna add some stuff here if it's not a bad roll. Oh, okay, so it's a 3, 8. So I'm on an 8 right now.
Okay, let me make his defense roll. Okay, you are currently beating him by 7.
So 7. I did maybe once. Maybe did I do any damage to him last turn? A little bit, right?
No, he
Not
used
really,
his
right?
vampiric
Not
toughness to negate.
Okay, yeah. So 7 does go off his track, but I do want to make sure that he stays down. I'm going to use my 2 remaining open stress boxes to raise that. It was an 8 to a 10.
Okay. So what he's going to do is he's going to tick off his 2 conditions to take that.
Yeah.
So describe how your attack goes, and it has done him some serious damage.
So everyone around me can see my hands almost look like my hand looks like almost as if a tornado is swirling around it, and the tornado forms into a ball of swirling wind and lightning. And I say Tempestius Malleus, and the ball goes flying towards the vampire general and takes a good chunk out of him, but obviously it's still alive.
Okay, it does indeed take a chunk out of him. He continues staggering back. As we come on to the NPC's turn, the general howls something, and as he does, his body just goes and like disperses into a cloud of mist. As he does that, the two lesser vampires remaining reach Bodaway and Faraday, and they're going to attack the two of you just like with their hands and their fists, effectively.
Yeah.
So I'll do Bodaway first. So let me just make the roll for them.
What do I roll for defense again?
In this case, it'd probably be force because you're trying to
Force as
like,
well,
fight them
okay.
off. But if you can think of another way you could defend yourself, you could possibly use haste if you're trying to dodge out of the way. It's down to how you describe it. Okay, so let's see. I'm on 5 at the moment for my attack roll.
Okay, I'm going to definitely invoke my people's survival hangs in the balance, because that was a 0, so I'm going to re-roll those.
Okay, go for it.
Oh, geez. Same roll. 0.
Oh, no.
Okay, so you have taken 5 levels of damage, so you can mark that off like 5 stress if you wish. Or you
I'll
can
do
use your
stress
conditions. Okay, so one of these vampires, as it's like fingernails extend almost into claws, sort of swiping you, literally like dives on top of you, bowling you over, and it's like clawing at you. There's like marks opening up on your face, your chest, etc. But it's all just sort of like cosmetic surface damage at the moment. Meanwhile, the other one has reached Faraday, so I'm going to make their roll.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
I'm currently on 9.
Nice.
So you want to make your defense roll?
Oh, okay. I got a +4 on my roll. Give me a sec. Right, can I use Beguile as I throw up some of like the burning like paper that magicians use and jump
I
out
would
the
say
way?
Beguile's not really applicable here because this thing like doesn't give a shit what magic you're like pulling out. It's just going to claw your face off.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll use haste then.
Okay,
I'll use
go
haste
for it.
and jump out of the way quickly. So I got 5 on my roll altogether.
Okay, so you'll be taking 4 stress from that.
4 stress. Okay.
Okay, so the second one of these creatures leaps on you, and again, it's bowled you over like it did with like the one did with Bodaway, and it's clawing at your flesh. So the rest of you guys, you see 2 of your companions go down under these lesser vampires. The general appears to have escaped, like dispersing into this mist, disintegrated, leaving just his 2 minions and this small girl stood at the far end of the street. Although as he's disappeared, she seems to like sort of like come back to herself, and she's just like looking around, bewildered. Okay.
I will go and start staking the vampires on the 2 on the floor.
Yeah, no. Yeah, there's 4 on the floor, but yeah, no problems. You go around, you're like. They let out screeches and expire, although they don't disintegrate. So again, they're probably younger vampires. That's fine. You can permanently kill those 4 on your turn. Okay, so what about McFay? The mist has dispersed. You're still like a cloud of flies.
Did the other 2 vampires pass through him, by him?
They didn't pass through you. They sort of went either side of you, and they've now like attacked your 2 companions.
Well, then he will stay in his fly form and swarm around them both if he can. If not, then he'll envelop one of them.
Okay, you're enveloping one of them. Now, are you trying to do damage, or are you just trying to like create an advantage, like distracting them so your fellows can finish them off?
I'm thinking they're going to try to get as far and deep into these things' throats and eyes and mouth and nose and ears as they can to cut off all senses and choke them out.
Okay, so I'm going to do that as a create an advantage roll. So make your roll.
All right. We're going to do this with force or focus. Which do you think?
I'd say probably force because you're trying to like get in amongst them.
All right. Stand by. And I am rolling. I got a 3 + 1, so 4.
Okay, so basically there are 2 free invokes of distracted on these 2 vampires, so those of you fighting them could potentially use those to like give you a +2 or a reroll like you would with a fate point. Okay, so we've got Hart staking the other 4 vampires, we've got McFay distracting the 2 who are fighting you guys. So Bodaway, one of these things is on top of you, there's flies all around it, it's a bit distracted, but it's still clawing at you.
Yeah, so what I want to do is try and uppercut my rifle as if I'm kind of trying to stab through it. But I would take a little bit of time while I was distracted to look for a weak spot, because presumably it's quite scrawny, especially underneath.
Indeed. Okay, so make your attack roll.
All right.
Don't forget you can use one of the free distracted invokes for a +2 or a reroll if you wish.
Oh yeah, definitely. 4 minuses. I'm gonna.
Oh no.
These are my fiance's dice. They're really brutal.
I'll tell you, I'm on 2 I'm on 2 for the defense.
Okay. So that's also a 2 from me. So am I okay to invoke an aspect as well?
You are indeed. What aspect are you invoking?
Yeah. Guardian of the Chiricahua.
Okay, so cross my fate point. That will give you, because this is only a lesser vampire, that will give you enough to finish him off. So describe how you finish off a vampire.
So I just spend a few seconds looking for a vantage point to skewer him, just as it's like getting all in disarray with these flies going through in every orifice, and I just scream and shove it up in through its heart.
Indeed. So you shove your wooden rifle directly through this thing's heart. It screeches, and then its screech is just cut off as your wooden rifle penetrates its heart. It shudders a little bit as it's impaled on it, and then it's just like...
I kind of half stagger to my feet. I'm very, very badly wounded, just as I'm kind of trying to pull it out.
Okay, no problems. We're going to go on to younger Mr. Faraday, who also has one of these creatures on top of him. What are you doing, Faraday?
Yeah, I would like to use my stunt at this point. Preparation.
Okay, so what sort of item do you have that's useful in this situation?
Could I have, which I don't know exactly where it comes from, anything, but it's a pendant that was given to me, and it's actually a fair pendant of sunlight.
I will say that if you
Smash down, sunlight comes out of it.
Now, in order to do that, you'd need to like really cross off like all 5 of your knowledge boxes, and I believe you've used some already.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, you could say like, oh, you've got a stake or something like that, and just cross off 1, but like a sort of a magical item that sends out sunlight.
Well, like a cross.
Well,
a cross will do the job.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a stake anyway from a heart that gave it to me. So no, I'll just use a stake and just try and, as this thing's bearing down on me, try and grab the stake that I've fallen on the floor and shove it into its heart.
Okay,
away.
Make me a force attack roll, and I'll roll for its defense.
Oh, I got +2 on the roll. My force is 0, so that's 2.
I'm on 5 at the moment.
Okay. Have a minute, so...
Don't forget, you could also use one of the free invokes off distracted to get yourself a +2 bonus if you wish.
Oh, yeah, I've got distracted on me. Yes, I use that. And I will spend a fate point for basically, he's in the game of his life, so he's trying to survive at this, just trying to survive. I don't think he's going to die at this point. To give him that kind of surge of adrenaline to shove this stake into its heart as hard as possible.
What's your final result?
So that'll be 6 altogether.
Okay, now I'm going to spend one of my fate points because I'm a mindless slave of the Black Court. That will take me to a 7.
Okay. I'll take that.
Okay, so obviously he's successfully defended. He doesn't do you any damage, but you've got this stake out. You're trying to shove it through his heart, but he basically pins your arm down to the floor next to you as he's like clawing at you with his other hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've still got Lunar Michael O'Connor to go.
At this point, obviously I'm concerned about Faraday, but I'm less concerned about him as the vampires are being slowly capped off than I'm about this girl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up and I'm going to run over to the girl and I'm just going to pick her up and kind of bring her to the side of the conflict a little bit, make sure she's okay. And they obviously vampires can't just swoop down and get her again.
Okay, at this point, since this girl is obviously like a practitioner of like the dark arts, I'm going to offer you a compel for your embittered ex-warden conscript to say that perhaps she knows of you or she recognises you as a warden and will react appropriately, because obviously she's probably been hunted by wardens previously.
I think that while obviously I don't come across as maybe a warden, I think it's possible that she might see my pentacle around my neck and recognize that as a sign of the council. Like wizards typically wear them, and so she might be afraid of that. Yeah, I'm willing to take the fate point for that.
Okay, no problems. So I have a fate point for that. As she sees you coming towards you, rightly she sees your pentacle amulet, recognises you as White Council, or at least a practitioner. She starts like screaming and she's like, "No, get away, get away!" And she turns around and starts like running away from you.
There's no, come back, it's okay. And I'm just gonna try to. I'm not gonna like gun it after her, but I'm gonna try to like keep her in my eye line at the very least, as I try to convince her that I'm not gonna hurt her. I want to take her away from danger. Essentially, it's like so basically as I'm chasing after her, I want to try to convince her of my sincerity here. Essentially.
Okay, she sort of runs into a bit of a dead end, turns around, and she's still screaming for you to get away. She throws her hands up and you feel a thrum of power, and from the nearby funeral home you hear the sound of crashing and splintering wood.
Oh dear, oh dear. At that point, I'm just going to keep my hands up, and I feel her power. I hear the sound, and I understand that what might be happening, but I'll have to deal with that here in a minute. I just say to her, "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to take you away from the bad people."
Okay, so just to recap the scene before we go on to the NPCs we've got O'Connor has run down this like blind alley with chasing after this young girl who's screaming for him to get away. You've all heard the sound of like splintering and crashing wood coming from the nearby funeral home, which, since it only took you guys 2 rounds to get here, isn't that far away. You can see that Faraday's still on the floor, like struggling with this one remaining vampire. And as you all look to the side, you see these shambling, naked figures that you recognise as the bodies that were lying on the tables of the funeral home. So it's shambling out of the entrance of the funeral home. You hear an old man scream from inside, and then there's a gurgle and the screaming stops. Now these things are quite slow, so they're sort of like shambling across. It's going to take them a bit of time to get to you guys. So first of all, we're going to roll the attack from the remaining vampire on Faraday. Okay, so I'll tell you that I'm on 6 Faraday, so you need to make a defense roll.
You're on 6. Oh shit.
Yes.
Okay. I will use. So it's bearing down on me, isn't it?
Yeah, it's literally got one of your arm holding the stake pinned down, and it's like clawing at you. Its face is reaching closer to your neck. You can see these fangs extending. There's a hungry look on its cadaverous face.
Okay, alright, basically it's bearing down on me, and I'm basically going to go kind of reach from those cards again, the cursed deck, and kind of like pull them out and go, "This has got to be your card," and flick one, trying into its mouth as it's bearing down on me.
Okay, make your defense roll.
Yeah,
also, this won't do it any damage, but...
No, I just want to try and burst it away from my mouth, from me. Can you use Guile for that? I'll use my cards and...
Again, I'd say Guile's not really appropriate because
Flare?
Flare's grand.
Flare?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, so I got 3 on the roll altogether.
So I'm beating you by 3 at the moment.
You're beating by 3 at the moment.
Don't forget there's still 1 distracted free invoke left.
Okay, I'll use the 3 distract.
So that takes you up to 5, so I'm beating you by 1.
Beating by 1. I've only got 1. Alright, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to take 1 damage.
Okay, I'm going to use my last fate point as a mindless servant of the Black Court to up it 2. So I'll be beating you by 3. So you take 3 levels of stress as this thing bites into your neck, and you feel this horrendous sensation of weakness, as though like your life force is being sucked out of you. The rest of you can see sort of like blood running over its mouth as it's greedily draining the very life force out of Faraday.
Right. Well, I've got 2 in stress left, so I have to take a condition at that point, do I? Is that how it works?
Yep.
Yeah, so once you're out of stress, you have to take the conditions to stay in the game, yeah. Or get taken out.
So, as in, like, in peril is 4,
Yeah.
so I have to take that as a that is gone with the 3. So it works like normal.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the aspect at the moment of blood loss connected with this,
Right.
which isn't going to do me a lot of good because I've got no fate points left, but you've got it.
Yeah.
I can compel it as like a normal aspect. So you're
Yeah.
feeling quite weakened and drained at the moment. This thing's still like sucking you but good. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next round. So we're going to start off with O'Connor. So you've heard this crashing, that you've cornered this small girl in this blind alleyway. It's a dead end. You see she's like looking around, trying to find a way to escape. But the only way out of this street is past you, pretty much.
Yeah, and as I said, my hands are up, in the air. I'm held at my sides. I'm trying to tell her, I'm not going to hurt her. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to take you away from the bad people.
She's like, no, get away. I know what you people do to people like me. Dylan said he'd find me a friend.
I'm not going to do anything to you, sweetie. Okay, I just want to take you away from the bad people.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask, can you please make me a roll? I'm open to which approach you need to use to see if you manage to persuade her.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not trying to be forceful. I think the best thing I can say is that my attention is totally focused on calming her down.
That's fine.
So my entire demeanor, everything about me is just focused on getting her to calm down and release her power, so that whatever's happening behind me stops, hopefully.
Okay, go for it.
So yeah, I'll go ahead and give that a roll then. Where's my roller? So that is a 3 for the moment.
Okay, with that, she seems to start calming down a bit, and she lowers her arms. The rest of you hear this like poof, 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 as these bodies that were shambling towards you just drop to the ground like they were marionettes that have suddenly had their strings cut, leaving the only sort of threat to you guys is the vampire that's like eating Faraday.
Stake it.
Okay, so Hart, make a force attack roll.
5.
Okay, I'll make its roll. Okay, describe how you stake and kill this vampire.
I'll just forcefully bring the stake straight down on its spine, aiming towards the heart as I do so, pushing it off Faraday at the same time.
Okay, there's a sickening sort of ripping sound as you pull it off Faraday. He's got this like big like wound in his neck. There's still like, a little bit of blood running out of it, or maybe punctured a vein or something. And you push this now dead vampire that screeches as you stake it. You roll it off him, and it lies there still with the pointy end of the stake protruding from the front of it. Okay, we're effectively not in combat round anymore, guys. So go for your life.
I'll look up to the heart as like I'm bleeding out a bit and go, "I'd like a room now, please, sir." I collapse a bit.
Try and plug the wound with something.
Yeah, that's not a problem. You've been used to like traveling on your own on the trail, and you've got like at least a few bandages and stuff, to patch yourself up when you're hunting monsters. So you put a pad on it and like put a strip of cloth around it. He's not in any further danger from like the blood loss, but he's going to be a bit shaky for a few days at least.
Yeah, I'm going to try and patch myself up with some more natural remedies.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Obviously, it's going to still take you a little bit of time to like recover, but any of you have taken just normal stress, you get all of your stress boxes back now because the encounter is finished.
Yay!
While everybody's
die.
while everybody's busy, McFay's going to reform out of sight and dust himself off, and then walk up all casual and look at it if he had just now seen the whole situation.
Okay, no problems.
Where the frick were you, Faraday? Sorry, McFay.
You see that like Faraday appears to be like a little bit delirious from blood loss. He's like, his words are like tumbling over themselves. He's like a bit spaced out.
He's like drunk.
To be fair,
Yeah,
you had all been drinking earlier, and he's just like lost a lot of blood. So yeah, it's not surprising.
Yeah.
He looks at you, McFay. He's like, "Where the hell were you, McFay?"
Yeah, he just ignores him and smiles. I did find an interesting artifact, and I believe it belongs to that general. And he holds up the sword, still holding it by the cloth or the glove.
Yeah, you see this antique saber gleaming in the moonlight, as I've described previously. You
Do I recognise that, John?
You certainly recognise it. From what you've heard, the vampiric creature that killed your chief used such a weapon.
And I do believe I found the outsider that brought me to Tombstone to begin with. He was some sort of unseelie spider creature, half man, half spider. But apparently the general did him in and left his saber behind.
The same weapon that killed Geronimo.
Well, it's a mighty weapon then.
And he killed your nemesis.
Yeah, the creature was nothing to me, but you seem to be the only one that has any attachment to this sword, so I give it to you.
Me. And I look concerned, as if. I mean, this is the murder weapon that killed him. So.
Okay, so while you're taking the sword, we're going to cut across to O'Connor and the small girl in the alleyway.
So my hands are still, of course, in the air. Now that I've just gotten her to calm down.
Yeah,
And
she's still looking at you warily, but she stopped sort of like screaming and shouting, and she's lowered her hands. You felt the magic that was coming off her cease.
And I ask her her name.
She looks at you for a few moments, and then she says, "Oh well, everyone mostly just calls me a sissy."
Sissy, okay, that's a very pretty name.
Says, "Well, that's not the name my mother gave me. My mother called me Nellie."
Okay, Nellie. That's even prettier. Where's your mother now?
You notice a sad look crosses her face when she says, "Oh, they were killed, and then Dylan found me and took me away from it all."
Okay, was Dylan the man you were with before?
She nods.
Okay, well, Dylan's not a good person.
She looks at you wide. She says, "I don't know what you mean. He brought me here and said that after a while I'd have a new friend here."
Well, and I'll be your friend, Nellie. That part might be true, but you can make plenty of friends.
She looks at you and see the beginning of tears glistening in her eyes, and she says, "Really?"
Yes, Nellie. Yes, absolutely. But I have to take you. We have to get out of this alleyway. We have to get indoors. Okay.
She holds a small hand up towards you.
Okay. And I'm just gonna reach out and I'm gonna just pick her up and carry her out of the alleyway.
Okay, no problems. You start carrying her out of the alleyway. Just give me a moment. Okay, can you please make me a defense roll, O'Connor? It's a force defense roll.
Can do. I'm sorry, which approach would you like?
Force.
Force would be good.
I'll tell you that I'm on 8.
And you're on a what?
8.
An 8. And our scale is going to be equal, I presume, on this, yeah?
Yep.
So it's a 3. It's a 3, and you're on an 8. So, is this having anything to do with the ghostly energy?
No.
Something entirely different. Okay, that's fine. My stress clear yet, or
yes,
no?
Your stress is cleared.
Oh, okay, that's perfect. So that's a 3. Do I have the ability to defend with my magic?
Not really, because this is a sort of surprise attack.
Okay, that's fine. So then, yeah, then I'm sitting on a 3 at the moment. So that would be a difference of 5.
Indeed.
Yep. All right.
I presume you're taking that on your stress.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take it on the stress for now. We'll kind of go from there.
As you're leading this small girl away by the hand, a mist coalesces behind you, and a cadaverous figure steps out of it and just sort of like kicks you in the small of your back, sending you sort of staggering forwards and sort of like falling on your face just at the mouth of this alleyway.
Okay.
You look around to see this general, this vampiric black court general appear. He scoops up the girl in his arm almost possessively, and then he looks at her, and you see her eyes glaze over like the instant he sort of like picks her up, and he says, he sort of strokes her chin almost sort of in a loving fashion, and then he says, there, only 3 more, Nelly, and soon Tombstone itself will be your friend. Won't that be wonderful? And she's like, yes, that'll be wonderful. And he turns away from you and he starts walking away, like carrying this young girl in like one arm.
All right. Now, from what I see, is the vampire still damaged from the earlier fight, or is he appear to have more or less cleared that up?
To go into game terms, effectively, he's cleared his stress, but he is still damaged.
He's got the damage from because I hit him.
Yeah.
So I don't want him leaving this alleyway alive. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll an attack and I aim it right at his freaking head, like a bowling ball. Yeah. Mediocre. So it'll be 5. I'm going to take my combat wizard again for a +2, which brings me to a 7. But I really want this to stick, so I'm going to mark off exhausted. Add +4 for a total of 11.
Okay. Well, luckily for you, since he's already damaged, and because he's been exposed to a vampiric bane, so he can't use a lot of his vampiric powers, that is enough to finish him off. So describe what you do to finish him off.
I sort of get up, and my kind of hand on my back, and I'm like, not so fast, buddy. I raise my hand again, and the air and all the air in the road just sort of sucks past him towards me, towards my hand. It all coalesces in my hand, and it's this giant ball of swirling air, kind of about the size of a watermelon, and I just hurl it at him, aimed at his head, and I'm presuming it just cuts his head right off.
Well, what I'm actually going to say, just to be a bit more prosaic, is it strikes his head, driving him to one side, and as he sort of falls over, he actually lands on a broken sort of one of those like wooden bits where they tie their horses.
Nice.
He lands on that, it goes straight through his chest. You see him look down with disbelief, his flesh already starting to wither away, and as he's dying, he looks at the young girl, who's obviously looking absolutely horrified, picking herself up where she's fallen to the ground as he released her. He reaches out to her again, and he almost has like a fatherly look on his face. He sort of reaches out at a shaking hand towards her. The flesh is already starting to turn to dust and fall off the bones, and he just says, my blood and those of my brood, to you, my child. And then his arm drops off and his face begins to fall to dust and wither away. As he says that, there's like a low, like rumble, almost like a sort of aftershock of an earthquake that seems to spread throughout the whole town. You see the girl sort of like looking around. She looks absolutely terrified. Her eyes are now clear. And
I kind of collapse to my knees at this point, obviously exhausted. And You know.
Okay, the rest of you guys have like heard the sound of this commotion from this nearby alleyway. What are the rest of you doing?
I'm running with my new death sword of death.
Okay, you arrive in time to see the demise of the vampire, and then this rumbling starts up. Those of you who have run round, you watch as the soil and earth that forms the ground here in this alleyway slowly starts to rise up, taking on this rough, humanoid, almost golem-like figure that must be about sort of 8 or 9 feet tall. Its eyes appear to be 2 chunks of silver that glow in the moonlight. You can feel like a tremendous sort of sense of spirit coming off this thing, as though this is like the spirit of Tombstone itself. It looks down at the small girl with these silver eyes, and slowly it starts like reaching out a hand made of earth and soil towards her.
Well, I would like to intervene and just throw myself towards her and just kind of pull her away from the hand. Obviously, I'm kind of wiped out right now, but
okay, can you make me a haste roll, please?
yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's 1. I'm on a 1.
Okay, I'll tell you, I'm on a 4 at the moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna re-roll with my fate point and invoke my with great power, greater obligation, trouble aspect. Kind of just throwing myself into the thick of it here to try to save a little girl here. Give myself a re-roll, and it's still a 0. So yeah, it's a total of a 1.
Okay, as you start running forward, this thing turns towards you, and the silver ingots that make up its eyes seem to glow, and the soil around your legs like rises up, grabbing hold of your legs and holding you fast. The rest of you have run round into the alleyway. You've seen this going on, and this like huge like golem is like not like reaching out to like attack or anything. It's just like reaching out a hand towards the small girl who bizarrely is sort of like holding up her hand towards it like she did to your friend O'Connor.
I'm going to start firing a pistol at it. That's all.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to make you make a roll for that. It's giant. You can't miss it. You start firing your pistol. Obviously, like small clods of dirt and dust flying off it. It doesn't seem to be particularly bothered.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to rush towards it with the sword sort of up like that and try and almost chop through its arm.
Yep, not a problem. Again, I'm not making you make a roll for it. You slice through its arm. The arm falls to the ground and it falls apart into like stones and pebbles as it does so. It almost again ignoring you. It just sort of like looks at the girl and it says, "I am Tombstone." And the girl reaches up towards it and she's like, "Will you be my friend?" And any of you who are mystically sensitive, you get like a feeling of sort of like agreement and satisfaction just rolls off this huge golem.
Having a deep connection to the Winter Court, am I getting any sort of vibe at all?
Make me an intellect roll and tell me what you get.
Ooh, intellect +3. If it's a Darksider, I get +2. So do I get to add +2?
Technically it's not, but I'll give you the +2 because of the situation.
All right. And I am rolling. And I got 3 and 5 is 8.
Okay, you've not encountered one of these creatures directly, but you've heard of them. You think this is what is known as a genius loci. It's like the spirit of a place. Effectively, this is like the spirit of Tombstone itself. Now, you've heard tales. You don't know any of the details, but you've heard tales of like very powerful people can occasionally like join with the spirit of the place, and they like become the place in essence.
Oh shit!
Could I give myself a compel at this point, John?
What are you suggesting?
Well, I have a demon inside of me, and it doesn't like nice things, and this might be like a good thing. You know,
I don't think that
it wants to kill it.
I think that the vampire bound with it, not a good person bound with it.
Okay. I'm going to offer you an alternative compel.
Yeah.
Here, Mr. Faraday. I'm going to say that your demon has also recognised that potentially this girl is going to like join with the very powerful spirit of Tombstone and like become the place. And your demon's like, oh, it'd be better if we were joined with the spirit than a small girl, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So effectively, your demon's trying to prompt you to like get in the way and like take her place.
Yeah, I'll take that as a fate point.
Okay, take your fate point. So, what do you do?
Basically, my demon at this point, Faraday's eyes go red, and basically, as the blood loss does not affect him anymore, he leaps, basically, with Agile's never had before, in front of it, knocking the girl away, and basically jumping to the.
Okay, so I'm gonna give other people a time to react. So there's this smell of brimstone. Faraday's eyes go red, and he starts like sprinting down the street towards this golem. And I'm gonna ask you to make me a haste roll, Faraday. Anyone who's trying to like intercede will have to like beat your haste roll on their own.
Hmm.
Okay, I got a +1 on the. So my haste is. I've got 2 altogether on haste.
Okay, so your roll's 2. Okay, so you've seen Faraday. Most of you know he's now got like this demonic passenger. Yep. There's a smell of brimstone. His eyes have gone red. It doesn't take a genius to work it out. He's running towards the golem. He appears to be like more intent on like getting the girl out of the way and taking her place rather than like, oh, I'm going to kill the girl or whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna attempt to stop him seeing that the possession happening and smelling the brimstone. Obviously, I know this demon. I know this part of him. Obviously, having seen him with my sight, so I know that this has to be stopped at all costs. So I'm going to mark off burned out preemptively.
Nice.
Just to bring it up. So that's +2 for all my remaining actions for the rest of this session here, or the scene, whichever ends first. And I am going to use force to restrain him with my air magic.
Okay, make your roll. You have to beat his roll of 2.
2, right? Okay. Fucking mediocre. It's like stuck on 0, this dice roll. I swear to God.
Oh, my rolls have been terrible, man.
Mine's 1. Mine's 1 all the time.
2, so it's still 5, though. But, actually, no, correction. Unless he gets scale, it's actually a 6. But if he gets scale, then it's a 5.
Okay, so you leap onto Faraday and to like tackle him to the ground to like restrain him. However, that means effectively that O'Connor and Faraday are like out of it. They can't do anything to like stop this guy.
Well, I'm actually using my air magic to hold him, but I can say that I have to focus on keeping him restrained.
Yeah,
that's fine.
So those two can't do anything more to intervene with what's going on with the girl and the golem. So that,
I am battling this shit, obviously.
So that leaves Bodaway, obviously our fly friend McFay and Hart. As you can see, this girl like reaching a hand up towards this golem.
McFay is going to try something that he hadn't tried before, but she's a girl, so maybe it might work. He turns into his body mass turns into an equal amount of flies, so there's like 8 million flies. He's going to try to surround her and pick her up, and if he can manage it, he's going to fly away with her, take her up to the next floor or a window.
Okay, I'm not going to make you make a roll for that. She weighs virtually nothing, as discussed. So you turn off these flies, you carry her up and away. You've removed the girl from the scene. So that leaves Bodaway and Hart there. The golem turns to look at you. You can see like its arm is growing back. It looks at the two of you and in a gravelly voice says, "Ooh," and it holds out a hand.
So you can do whatever you want with this, but I'm going to invoke my aspect. The trees are my kin, the earth my bed, the wind my guide. And I'm essentially going to pray to the gods of the earth, since this is a kind of a tainted thing upon the ground which it sits, in order for them to possibly react.
Okay, so I'm going to say, as you do that, you suddenly, and this is like happening mentally so no one else sees this, you suddenly find yourself in the same area, but it's in the area as it was before Tombstone was built. It's not been despoiled by the mining. Trees are everywhere. And as you look across where the golem was standing, you can see a young man who looks very much like a brave of your tribe. He's stood there. There's a small campfire next to him. He's smiling. He looks around as though he's seeing the scene for the first time, smiles, and in your own language says, I remember when the land was like this. Beautiful, isn't it?
This was before my time.
He looks at you and you see briefly like a glint of silver in his eyes. And he says, it could be like this again. And he sort of
Tell me what to do.
He like holds out his hands towards you.
But he still remains seated.
Well, no, he's stood up, but he's not like moving
Okay.
towards you. He's just like holding out his hands towards you and he's like, it could be like this again.
Okay, if he's gesturing for me to go to him and sort of put my hands on him, then I do so.
Okay, so now we've only really got like Hart who's able to act in the real world. You see Bodaway walking with her hands held out, walking towards this golem that's just like holding out its hands towards him, not in a threatening way, just like
Spear him out of the way. So I will run across the distance and stick my shoulder into it to knock him out of the way.
Okay, so I'm going to ask both of you for a haste roll. So, Bodaway, can you make me a haste roll? And Hart, can you make me a haste roll? Let's see who gets there first.
2, 3. 3.
Also a 3.
Okay, are any of you spending fate points to alter your roll?
I will spend a fate point.
I don't have any fate points.
Okay, now I'm going to say, Hart, that you've got no chance of like shoulder barging this like golem out of the way because it's like made of the earth and it's like...
Yeah, it's massive.
But you could certainly shoulder barge Bodaway out of the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, no problem. Your shoulder like smashes into Bodaway and you knock him to the ground. The sort of mental landscape instantly disappears for you, Bodaway, and you're like lying on your side in this street. Okay, can you make me a haste roll, please, Hart? As this creature like reaches out towards you.
1.
Okay, you feel a heavy hand made of rock plump down on your shoulder, Hart. And as it does so, immediately your awareness begins to expand. It's as though if you concentrate, you can sense everything within the town, the smallest creature, the humans, the size of the stone, the wounds that the mines have inflicted on the landscape, the seething resentment of the spirit that lies within this landscape at what's been done to it. And then it's as though the spirit flows into you, and effectively this golem like just surges forward as a tide of dust and soil surrounding Hart, as though he's like encased in a cocoon of solid rock. It's just like this rocky like statue there. What do the rest of you do?
Well, I was still focused on keeping Faraday restrained. Has his demon receded yet? Or
yeah, his demon's pretty much cut her losses and gone like, oh, I see that shit's gone down already. I've got no chance, and it's just like.
Yeah. Well, I of course dropped my spell, and I kind of fall over a little bit now, and kind of panting heavily. This is why I retired.
Okay, and as you say that, the rocky chrysalis around Hart begins to disintegrate into soil and rubble, revealing Hart standing there. Now, Hart, effectively, you have been joined with the spirit of Tombstone. In effect, you are Tombstone. You are now the spirit of this town. Now, feel free to freestyle this. How has that affected what your character looks like?
I'd say he's probably taken on more of a dusty traveller look, considering the nature of Tombstone at current. He looks like he's weathered.
Okay, you turn around and you can see your companions, but it's as though you're watching them through different eyes. You can sort of see them more fully, and as I say, there's this sensory inrush as you can sense everything within the boundaries of the town, and you know that with the power you have now, you could like make this town great again, and you can feel the satisfaction of like the spirit as it sort of almost nods approval, knowing that it's found a strong and willing vessel. You know that as long as you stay within Tombstone, pretty much you're now like the most powerful hombre in this town.
Can we tell that he's like merged with this thing and it's become this?
Well, you can see him looking all dusty.
It
and
kind of seems vaguely obvious.
Yeah,
but,
as he moves, there's like bits of like
Yeah.
dust and soil falling off him, but he looks otherwise like himself.
Well, I'm going to try and step in front of him. As I'm someone who's been around with him for a while, kind of thing. So I want to try and get through to him if he's not Heart right now, and just say, Heart, we
What?
need to save this town. Can you sense where the taint is right now?
Everywhere.
You can sense, as you say, everywhere, Hot. You can sense that there are other lesser members of the vampire's brood still in Tombstone. You know now that as you're joined with the spirit of Tombstone, that they were attempting a ritual to summon the very spirit, planning to join with it, well, join the small girl with it, and then they would control the spirit of Tombstone through her. But obviously that plan went awry, and you are now Tombstone for all effects and purposes.
So this building, are they in a building or are they under the earth?
They are layering in the cellar of an abandoned building.
I want to raise that building to the ground then.
Okay, so
Same.
as you say, the taint is everywhere. You raise your hand into the distance, and as you watch, a nearby building just collapses as though the ground parts and swallows it whole. There are screeches from within the collapsing ground, and then silence as rubble just falls and envelops it.
There was.
You feel a sense of satisfaction from your spirit side as the taint disappears from Tombstone.
Is that it? Is that the taint gone?
And I think,
Yes.
I think as the new spirit of Tombstone with the taint cleansed, I think the final line of this session should go to Tombstone itself, incarnated in the person of Vincent Hart, as you look across the town, knowing that with the aid of your allies and the spirit that you are now joined with, you can once again restore this town to greatness. What's your closing line?
We'll make a better world.
He says that and smiles, and a cool, fresh wind blows through the streets of Tombstone, blowing away the last remnants of the stain that has besmirched it. And as you all look up, seeing the sun starting to rise in the distance, a new day dawns, and perhaps a new future for the town of Tombstone, a more hopeful future with people such as yourselves to defend it. And that is where we are going to end the session, people. Thank you very much for playing. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for running it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that was okay for you guys. Thank you very much. It didn't go exactly the way I sort of expected it to. They never do. That's part of the joy of the hobby.
The best types of sessions.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so as always, I'm happy to chat for a while, guys, but I'm going to end the recording here.